welcome to Modern Mystic Messages. I hope everybody's doing well today. Welcome to Lionsgate and welcome to Monday. Let me get this part situated because I forgot to do that earlier. I'm Teresa. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're returning, what's up, soul family? I'm going to give it a few minutes to see if some of our regulars come in here this evening. But yeah, we're going to have a good time tonight. So welcome in, welcome. Get comfy. Get you your coffee, tea, water, whatever it is you chilling on today. And yeah. Hey, Brittany. Yay. Glad to have you in. Welcome in. Welcome in. We're going to, you know how we do. We're going to give it a few minutes to see who all else is able to show up and join us. And then we're going to get locked and loaded here. Oh, I'm sorry. You said to do something rude. Turn that down a little bit so you can actually hear me. How are you doing today, love? What I doing? Oh, I got to get my glasses on so I can actually see too. Hey, Sage. Welcome, welcome. Oh, thank you. Thank you. We're going to give it a couple minutes to see who all can spill on in here before we get started, because tonight I think we're going to have a good time, though. I've been thinking a lot about, some of the folks that come in here are always like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, and all this, and you got to, love Yahweh, and you got to do this, and you need to serve Allah. We're going to talk about the nature of Yahweh tonight. That's what we're going to do. How y'all doing? How's this Lionsgate treating you? It's so funny. I normally folks start piling in here. I was like, uh-oh, it sounds good. Okay, it's going okay. Good. Yeah. Hey, Antoine, yay. Oh, see, I got the crew, the for real crew. So you know what? We're going to try to give a few minutes for some more folks to come in. But yeah, we loaded right now. I'm doing real good, Sage. I'm feeling pretty good today. And nothing really unusual happened. I don't know. I just decided, well, actually, today was my final ramp down day. I got a little bit of fruit left in the freezer because I choose to, for you 12, whoever you are, I'm not appropriating anything. I have one of my main guides is Lord Shiva. So I am not appropriating anything. I'm choosing to wear a bindi. But Trevino, you won't be in here long doing that, love. If you want to hear what's going on, you're more than welcome, but you're not welcome to disrespect or spam. I got a gang of moderators in here, and they'll remove you with quickness. I won't even have to touch the screen at all. We're going to be respectful in here and learn. If we don't want to learn, we're welcome to leave, okay? That's how this rolls over in this house. I don't know what y'all do in the other rooms you like to, well, that's your perception from your limited consciousness, corp Xanax, whatever. Maybe stop taking Xanax and you'll see things a little differently. But the reason, let me see. I don't know who Sydney Sweeney is, and I don't care about jeans or jeans that way. So, Freddie, we don't do that here. You think that's cute, it's disrespectful, and it's really kind of idiotic. I hope you're an adult, or actually I kind of hope you're a child saying something that silly. But yeah, thank you, Cloud Music. We just gonna get on. I'll let the mods do their job, and I'm gonna get on with my job, because I'm not gonna argue with simple-minded people that's on foolishness today. Thank you, Coca-Cola. Now, well, the one thing that I wanted to talk about, well, it ain't one thing. We can talk about anything because this our house and our thing. We can get into whatever. But it occurred to me, it's been a while since we went into, nice to meet you, Emanuela and Thomas, welcome in. Goodbye. I'm going to pray for your consciousness because right now you got the IQ of a 2-year old. And I don't even want to insult the 2-year old that way, Sean C. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to discuss tonight, because a lot of people that ain't on the clown time, some of the serious religious folks that come in here are always on the, well, you don't know God, you need to know God, and all of those things. So what I wanted to do was take a little time and go back into the scriptures and talk about the nature of Yahweh, because that was one of the things for me as a child. When people talk about their prayer closet, I remember intensely, I couldn't have been no more than maybe 13, 14 years old, with the things that I was seeing and being taught within religion, and the things that was going down around my house, and the way I was just not processing all of that. I remember a very intense moment, literally on my knees, sobbing, crying in my closet, saying that I wanted to know God, because what I was being taught and what I was perceiving wasn't meshing with what I was reading, and it just wasn't connecting. So I literally was begging to know God. Now, like they say, be careful what you ask for because you just may get it. And on October 20th of last year, when I had that whole epiphany and I bumped into the Lost Book of Enki and the Sitchin work and all the rest of that stuff, that the following morning after I really had that revelation that, wait a minute, this ain't just a cool story. This is something I need to pay attention to. And in meditate, I was sitting at the table and I clairaudiently heard, you said you wanted to get to know me. And I realized that all the hell and confusion and drama and trauma and all of those things that I went through from my teenage years up through adulthood, to being passed off to the narcissist and the crazy men and the relationships and all of that, that was an introduction, a baptism by fire into the world of Yahweh. Every single person that I was dealing with, I do see them, John. I just ignore foolishness, that part. Every single person that I was dealing with that did me dirty and all the rest of that, it literally had kicked the slats out from under me over and over and over again in life. Every single one of them was supposed to be good Christians. So I was getting the full Yahweh experience. I just ain't have sense enough to understand what was happening. I asked to get to know the nature of Yahweh, and a lot of his good servants was kind enough to give me the business, like they say. Well, he ain't of this world, but his people are. And Brittany, you said you went through the same thing. Yeah, I can understand for sure. But part of what I wanted, I was looking today and I went through in my notes and I actually went and looked up some of the scriptures that will give you further insight, because when we sit in church, whichever church it may be, when you sit in, no, I'm not a pastor, Emanuela. I'm a teacher, though. I am a spiritual teacher, but I am not a pastor. No, I wouldn't, I don't, I won't affiliate myself with Christianity now that I know what it is. I stepped away from it. No, I'm not a medium. I am a clairaudient uh, channel, but I don't talk to dead people other than my relatives. That's about it. I don't open myself up to talk to just any and all spirits. No. Yep. Welcome in, spiritual seekers. So I wanted to go to some of the specific accounts in the scripture. So it's not just me sitting here giving, I can give you the Cliff Notes version of it all day. But I wanted to read from the scriptures because that's what they come in here, all upset because they say I'm violating this, thus saith the Lord. You can actually learn the true nature of Yahweh if you stop looking so much at the truncated version, the church, the Sunday school version. Pastors are very good at sitting down and taking a little bit of scripture, and then they'll sit down and do all of their word jazz, and they good to, they'll build a sermon around 2 or 3 verses. But when they do that, very often they leave out the important context of what is really going down in the scriptures. It's just like people acted surprised when I was telling the story about the nation of Israel when they received the 10 Commandments at the foot of Mount Sinai. Most people are very, very surprised to find out that 3,000 Jews were slaughtered that night in the name of appeasing Yahweh. That's the nature of the God that they had signed on for, and they didn't even know, but it was too late then. No take backsies. But he was so mad, in order to keep from killing all of them, the Levites slaughtered 3,000 of the nation of Israel that night. Yeah, Ash, I am wearing a bindi as well as a mantika today because I just chose to. Most of the time when you see me on here, I will be wearing a bindi. I do like to cover my third eye when I'm doing this. I'll have my head covered most of the time as well. Some kind of something on my head. But yeah, let's get in here and get started. And I'm not taking them in any particular order. The things that, well, 2 of the things we're not going to get into because I've done a video talking about Job. You can look it up. It's in the playlist, Modern Mystic Loved Ones. But the whole story of Job gives you huge insight as to the nature of how Yahweh is. He let that man lose everything just to prove his loyalty. I'm not going to read the whole account of Job, but in the first part of it, it says, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. And he wound up losing all of it. Yahweh allowed him to be tested. He said, you can do anything you want to him, just don't kill him. And he lost everything just to prove a point for loyalty to Yahweh. And preachers preach that like it's something good. You killed 10 of this man's children and busted him down to the frame, took all of his wealth, he slaughtered thousands of animals, 10 of his children, took all of his money. His wife betrayed him, and his so-called friends came to sit with him and literally picked at him for a whole week straight. You must have did something. Don't nobody lose all of this stuff for nothing. What did you do? You can't be blameless because you lost all of this stuff. You just being paid for what you did. You must have done something to deserve this. On and on and on. They did that to that man for a week until his wife just said, damn it, just curse God and die already. And preachers preach this like this is love. That ain't loving. That's not loving, to allow your faithful servant who has done no wrong to go through all of that just to prove a point. But that's the nature of Yahweh. Then we go, well, I had already mentioned the deal about the promised land. He'd been promising that land to people all through the Bible. From the time Abram left Ur and went out into the wilderness. He promised them that land. Then 500 years later, he promised it to the Israelites again, and then got mad at them at the foot of Sinai and told them they was a stiff-necked people, and he washed his neck of them and wash his hands of them and all the rest of that stuff. Over and over again, he promised them stuff, and then still only half-assed delivered on his promises. So much so, that even Paul noticed, or noted, in his dissertation on faith in Hebrews chapter 11, after he named all of the faithful men and women of old, including Job and Enoch and Abram and all the rest of them, he went, Yahweh is absolutely bad, honey. Yeshua, we'll get to it later, but Yeshua told the Jews that they were worshiping the devil. They worship Yahweh, but John chapter 8, he tells them that the Father that sent him is not the Father that the Jews were worshiping, that they were worshiping their father, the devil. Yeah. So let's go back though. And I started with the initial kind of meetup. There's a couple of places in Genesis that I wanted to look at. Genesis chapter 12 and verse 1. And I'm going to do my best to call out any and all of the scriptures that we're reading directly, so you can go check whatever version of the Bible that you're looking at later. And I highly encourage you to read around some of it. We're not going to read everything because it does get kind of long, but we're going to try to get enough of it to get the real flavor of it. I don't want to just one verse you to death on some Sunday school razzle dazzle. We're really trying to see how Yahweh moves amongst his people, how he treats his people. And again, there's even, well, I think this might be, I can't remember, part of, in Genesis, we're going to go back. We're going to look at a lot of stuff in Genesis, because you also, not only do we start seeing the nature of Yahweh, there's a couple of places here in the scriptures where you start to see how they started blending or pulling the other Elohim out of here, because we'll get there in a minute. Hold on. Let's see, Genesis 12:1. Yeah. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Now, sounds good on the surface, except why would you want to start out before anybody even did anything to you? Why is it that we feel like other people need to be cursed for us to be blessed? And he's telling you right there, anybody that dishonors you, I'm going to get them. He's starting out the gate on some violent stuff. That part. And one of the first things he does when he leaves out of there, and Abram left, and all the rest. And Abram wasn't shit neither, because he started out on a lie. They went out. Times got tough. There was a famine in the land. He had to go back in to Egypt. Time him out shortly. Mark Adelson, this is about the third or fourth time you done come in my house with that. I don't care about Cristiano Ronaldo's religion. That's not what we're here to do. If you'd like to stay and listen, that's fine. But why does it matter to you? Why are you so obsessed with Cristiano Ronaldo? I don't know. Nobody, Emanuela. The scriptures are, like I said, the idea of worship is something that was given to us genetically. Lord Enki does not want us to worship anybody. Okay? Thank you, Mindy. So now let's go back here. We get to Abram is just now contracting. This is like the first introduction, if you will, of Yahweh to Abram, the father of the Israelite nation. Abram had been doing something else and then turned around and agreed to leave off of worshiping sin, non sin, and start walking with Yahweh. But the first thing that Yahweh does is put him on some revenge stuff. You walk with me, I got your back. I'm gonna do whatever. Anybody else that don't like anybody that do come against you, I'm gonna avenge you. And he was on that curses type stuff. When they went into Egypt, like I said, they went out into the land. The famine came. They had to go back into Egypt because they needed to get something to eat. Famine was there. And when they went in there, Abram told his wife, Sarai, to lie and say that she was his sister instead of his wife. Now, Abram was dead wrong for that. But he was so busy worried because he felt he was older. He was much older than Sarai, and she was very, very beautiful. So he was afraid that people would try to unalive him to get to her. So instead of telling the truth, he had her lie. And because the Pharaoh saw her and she was very beautiful and thought she was a single woman, he started like lacing her up with gifts and all that stuff. He wanted to take her to wife. And instead of Abraham, or he was Abram at the time, instead of him setting the record straight, and instead of Yahweh setting the record straight, Yahweh brought plagues onto the house of the Pharaoh. Why would you do that? Oh, but he was good at that plague thing. Remember that whole 10 command? I mean, with the whole nation of Israel, we're gonna get there as well too. We're gonna get to that in Exodus when they were coming out. Them horrible plagues that he gave everybody. That part, because he was having a fit because he wanted to hijack them people for himself. Now, I don't want to go into that whole thing, but like I said, that it just shows not an upfront kind of honest, upstanding dude at all. This is his first interaction really with Abram, and he's starting out offering violence and actually inflicting violence instead of doing the right thing. Abram did the wrong thing and was rewarded by his God bullying up on people for no reason. But that's the nature of Yahweh. Yeah. Yeah, the halls of Amenti are reachable by meditation. We'll get there. We'll talk about that more. We actually do discuss it in the compendium of the Emerald Tablets, but we on something else for right now. So yeah. So now let's go on to Genesis 18. Excuse me. And before we get to that, one of the things I did notice too about the nature of Yahweh, when he first talked to Abraham about serving him, he promised Abraham a son in his old age. Abraham was 75 years old when Yahweh made that promise to him. And Yahweh did not fulfill that promise to him until he was 99 years old. What kind of foolishness is that? You done sat here and promised this man, if he's willing to leave his family and his hometown and everything he know and put faith in you, you're going to bless him with a child in his old age, and you're going to make his name into a mighty people. And then you still look like you sitting around waiting for him to kick off from old age. You still ain't delivered on your promise. Took you a quarter of a century for you to actually fulfill your promise. And before he fulfilled his promise of a child through Sarai, he did what? Turned around and made Hagar, Sarai's servant girl, bear him a child. So now you done brought adultery technically into the house because Hagar didn't want to lay down and have a baby with him. If you read through the biblical account, she was trying to run away. And Yahweh's messenger told her, go back there and do what you're supposed to do, basically, and forced Sarai to try to attempt to fulfill this promise of Yahweh, since she wasn't getting pregnant and she was getting pretty long in the tooth herself, she offered up her servant girl as a concubine to Abram, and she had Ishmael before Isaac was born. What kind of foolishness? Humpty Dumpty, he did curse. He tells you, you ain't read Genesis, Exodus, or Leviticus, Humpty Dumpty, because he talks about the curses unto the Father, unto the Son, 3 generations, 4 generations, and anybody that do this is cursed, and anybody that do that is cursed. Half of the Mosaic law is laying down curses on people from Yahweh if they don't keep the letter of the law. Did I not say Hagar? I'm sorry. Yeah, her. I don't know what I said. Maybe I said somebody else, but yes, Sarai's servant, like I said, the one that had a baby first for Abram was Hagar. She had Ishmael, and then Sarai had Isaac later. Let me see, 18, 1 through 15. Oh, now this scripture is interesting. The reason I included this, because this may be the one instance where Yahweh actually appeared to them in the physical. Again, it could just be syntax in the way the scripture is translated, but if we look at the wording, it looks like Yahweh may have actually appeared to them. It says, and the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree while I bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves and that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, do as you have said. And Abram went quickly into the tent, and Abraham, because she had a baby. His name change had happened. Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, quick, 3 seahs of flour, knead it and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. That was Yahweh and 2 of his messengers coming to them. So now they sat down and ate. That's not a sky daddy, people. That's a being. It wasn't a human being, but it's a being. And Yahweh loved barbecue. Everywhere he showed up in the scriptures, he's telling these people to do some kind of animal sacrifice to him, in key like the vegetables and stuff. Yahweh wanted goats and sheep and lambs and all the rest of that. Everywhere you go, you had to do some kind of animal sacrifice to Yahweh. And they sat down and ate this. Stephen, Nibiru and Earth were very similar, because Nibiru's people came to Earth and they established their government and they rule and brought their nasty morality and everything else. Like Paul Wallace said, worshiping a monster makes monsters out of us. And over time, Yahweh's principles have taken over the earth, and like the scriptures say, the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. So a lot of the stuff they describe, the pestilences and the diseases and the things that were happening around the time of the flood, we're seeing the same thing now. And according to the Lost Book of Enki, the same type of stuff was happening on Nibiru as well. I ain't even see what they had to say, but I ain't worried about it. All right, so now let's continue on, because again, this ain't before Yahweh had been appearing in the smoke, in the bush, in the cloud, in the whatever. He actually showed up and stayed around in physical form long enough for somebody to slaughter a sheep and prepare it, and they sat down and ate. Hey, King Anawa, how are you? Glad to have you. Welcome in, welcome in. We got 43 folks in the house. Can we please get some more thumbs up here? I'd really, really appreciate that. That's a beautiful energy exchange. If you're getting some benefit from the info, I would appreciate it. Now, yeah, so now after they said to him, "Where is Sarah your wife?" And he said, "She is in the tent. The Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I'm worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child now that I'm old? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Well, apparently so, because you done been promising them this baby for 25 years and they still ain't got it. She done gone through menopause and everything else. She was considerably younger than Abraham, but she done got old too now. So old is she like, now that I'm old and wore out, now you gonna give me a baby? Really? That part. Hey, Salita. I have Yeshua. I don't need Jesus. I have Yeshua legends. Thank you, though. Appreciate it. So anyway, that whole story though, it just shows you again, he keeps people waiting. He don't have no problem with lying to folks. He don't have no problem with unfairly punishing people. And even at that, he made Abraham take the long way around. Abraham did everything that Yahweh told him, and it still took Yahweh 25 years, wait to almost to the end of this man's life, for him to be able to get what Yahweh promised him. Interesting. Now let's go ahead on. We're going to go back to Genesis 15. There's some stuff in 15, 16, 17. Wait a minute. And 18:1. Hold on. Oh, 18:1 was the personal appearance. That's where we just read that. But let's look at Genesis 15. That's the initial covenant. I'm sorry. I should have, yeah, that was where he promised him all that stuff, and the covenant and circumcision and all that good, all those goodies. I'm not sure why I wrote that part down, the covenant of the circumcision. There is a story in the scriptures, and I forgot to look this one up. Okay. Oh, hey, Miss Yates. Welcome, welcome, and greetings. I think you will too if you studied my niche, but I'm not doing tarot right now, baby. I'm not going to pull cards on that. If you've prepared for the interview, then you should do just fine. And if not, you should take some time to prepare, but I think you'll do fine. Yep. Um, yeah, there is, let's see, Exodus 32. I think this was what I was looking for. Yeah. Hold on. Hang on a second, y'all. I'm trying to make sure that this is going to lead where I wanted to, because it's a whole chapter and I don't mind reading it, but I want to make sure, because they mentioned this a couple of times. Okay, yeah. All right. This is the chat. We're going to look at this whole account because people don't believe me. Let me see. Hold on. Hold on one second. Hey, Valerie. I'm so sorry that I missed you, but welcome in. And we're here in Genesis 32. This is after the nation of Israel has gone through all the plagues and stuff and come out of there. And they finally got out of Egypt. They're at the foot of Mount Sinai. Moses has gone up into the into the mountain to receive the law from the rule book for how they're going to serve Yahweh. And Yahweh kept him up in the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. So when the people saw, started here, verse 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said, "Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who had brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So Aaron said to them, "Take off the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, "These are your gods." And "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord." And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Oh, okay. Now, the thing to remember here, again, they were not worshiping Yahweh when they were in Egypt. They were worshiping most likely Moloch, which was another iteration or kind of a morphing, if you will, of Marduk. And so when they got out of Egypt and they waiting on Yahweh to get, they said, "Okay, we'll follow you, we'll worship you." They're waiting on Yahweh to give them the rule book. But Yahweh ain't showing up, and neither is Moses. So they didn't know what else to do. They told Aaron, "Make us a calf. We got to appeal to somebody. We don't want to just die here at the foot of the mountain. Maybe if we appeal to our old God, he'll come and save us." So that's what they did. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, for your people, for whom you have brought up out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves." It said, "Go down, for your people whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way that I commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation of you.'" How you gonna make a great nation of them, and you talking about consuming them with the fire of your wrath? That part. But Moses implored the Lord his God and said, "O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power, with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, 'With evil intent did he bring them out, to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth?' Turn from your burning anger and relent this disaster against your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, 'I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your offspring, and they shall inherit it forever.' And the Lord relented from the disaster that he had spoken of bringing on his people." But Yahweh was forever threatening to unalive his people. When in the Babylonian epic, he wanted them all done away with. In the Enuma Elish, they was too loud. He wanted them all done away with. In the Atrahasis, they were too loud, and they wanted them all to be done away with. He been calling for a very, very much, Prince said, very angry, very conditional, very unloving, very hot-headed. His answer to everything is cursing them, bringing plagues on them, or outright killing them. Everybody. No patience whatsoever for humanity, period. He ain't even stopped to realize, wait a minute, I never told these people what I expect from them in worship. I pulled them out of captivity and then abandoned them for over a month. They used to worship in something, because I'm the one that insisted that they have a worship gene and feel a need to worship something. So I took them away from their known worship and did not outline their new form of worship. Why would I get so angry that I want to kill them all? But again, he's not a rational being. He's very much a hothead. Hi, Chai Gertz. Hi, John Zervos. Yep. So let's continue. Then Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, tablets that were written on both sides, on the front and on the back they were written. The tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. Now remember, God simply means Elohim, the powerful ones. We got to get the Sky Daddy image out of our heads. Yeah, the worship gene, Yahweh saw us as slaves, and he wanted us to have the genetic propensity to worship, to not even have a choice in it. He insisted that we have a gene for worship inserted in our genome. And Enki complied because Yahweh had command of earth. He really kind of sort of didn't have a choice in that. Yahweh didn't do any of the design for humans or any of the genetic figuring out. Enki was a geneticist. Yahweh is a warrior. So he didn't put anything into the research on how to create humans. He just insisted that we would have our telomeres capped so we couldn't live but just so long, and that we would have a gene that gave us the propensity to worship. And we will be kept in ignorance, that we would never be told that they're not gods, that we would be continuing to worship them as gods. That's what Yahweh contributed to the project, was the demand that we worship. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, "There is a noise of war in the camp." But he said, "It is not the sound of shouting for victory, or the sound of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing that I hear." And as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, Moses' anger burned hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hand and broke them at the foot of the mountain. And for that mistake, he was denied the promised land. He literally put his life on the line to go to the Pharaoh. Pharaoh already was looking he ran away from the Pharaoh because he killed one of the Pharaoh's guards. He was an Israelite adopted into the Pharaoh's house and killed one of the Pharaoh's guards, got scared for his life, and ran out of Pharaoh's house. Yahweh made him go right back to the Pharaoh and challenge the Pharaoh to release all of the Israelites. And the Pharaoh said, "Hell to the no, I'm not releasing them." And Yahweh brought all of them plagues into Egypt. The first one was what? Turning all of the water in Egypt was turned to blood. Then he brought in frogs that ate up everything, was in the water pots, in the food, in the everything. Then he brought a plague of gnats. Then he brought the gadflies. Then he brought killed all the livestock. Then he brought the plague of the boils. Everybody got sick with boils on their body. Then hail destroyed the crops in the buildings. The locusts came and finished chewing up all the crops that the hail didn't eat. Then they brought darkness, and then the last plague was all of the firstborn male children in the land of Egypt, including all of the male livestock. He killed them all overnight. That's what that whole Passover meal thing was about. And we'll get into that later. But they had to put the blood of the lamb over the door. And if they didn't, because everybody that did not have that blood over the door of their household, the firstborn in their house and the firstborn of their livestock was killed. Antoine, yeah, Yahweh can be unalive. They said in Revelation he's going to be. When it talks about chaining that dragon, that devil and serpent, the one called Satan, he'll be cast into the pit into the lake of fire that burns forever and ever. He gonna be done away with because they done exiled him and that didn't work. And then they exiled him again and that didn't work. They let him out for a while to see if he was gonna get his act together, and he set off on misleading mankind for a pretty long time. And they said at the end of all of that in Revelation that Michael and his folks was gonna do away with him. Yes, Yahweh and Satan is the same. His title when he came here from Nibiru was Lord of the Command. That was his first title. His second was Satan of the Eden, which Satan just basically meant like governor or ruler or whatever. The Eden was the area that he reigned. Yahweh, when they first got here, like I said, Yahweh did a lot of sitting back and letting things happen. Enki came in moving and shaking. He was clearing the land, running the work crews and all the rest of that. Enki was the first one to establish a Sabbath because he worked his work crews. When I say they first came here, it was Yahweh, Ninmah, Ningishzida, who was Thoth, and Enlil. But they also brought I think they started out with about 50 or 60 workers just to clear the land, make a base camp, build their houses and stuff. But before they ever even got around to creating humans, at one point in time, there were 600 Anunnaki workers here. So Yahweh was sitting on his butt running his mouth. Enki was the one that was running the work crews, establishing the mining facilities, out kind of plotting the riverways and the waterways, exploring the land to see what was happening, and building the housing areas and all of that. And the first things they did was made the Eden. It was like a garden laboratory. They also had some fruits and trees and things that they had brought with them from Nibiru. They described things, vegetation that actually helped extend their life. That tree of life we hear about in the Bible, that was real, but it came from Nibiru. And it was designed for them to preserve their life. But once he got everything situated, Yahweh said, oh, this is going to be my house. You're going to have to find somewhere else to go. And Enki didn't even buck. He went on into the jungle area, kind of swampy, whatever, because the Eden was in Iraq. And Enki wound up coming into like the Western belt, like the Gold Coast across Africa, that swath there. They said that was basically the primary area of the Eden, and it was extended on down into Southern Africa when they started mining for gold and whatnot. But Enlil's title was Satan of the Eden, and Enki's title was Ea of the Abzu. Say what now? Who was the divine the divine over everything? The divine over everything, King Anawa, has not chosen to give us a name, nor does it interact directly with us. The Anunnaki refer to it as the creator of all. We call it the all or the I am or what have you. But Enlil and Enki are not the ones who created this planet. That's the lie that Enlil told. The creator of all put the planet here and did the initial terraforming and bioforming and all of that. And interestingly enough, in the Lost Book of Enki, the creator of all does send a messenger named Galzu to communicate with Enki and let him know, look, I didn't tell y'all to come in here and mess with the stuff in my house. But since you've done this thing, now that you've created humans, they are to be here. This is their home, and don't mess with them. You're not going to just destroy them and all the rest of that. Treat them well. You ain't had no business doing it, but since you did it, see it through, was basically the message that Galzu brought from the creator of all to Lord Enki. That's one of the reasons why. That's the reason why he created the vessel that allowed Noah, Ziazudra, to survive the flood. Yahweh takes credit for that in the Bible, but Yahweh did not do that. Yahweh wanted us all to die in the flood. He said, let us drown. It was Lord Enki who preserved us through the flood. And he did it with instructions from the messenger from the creator of all, the one who actually made this planet. He sent his messenger Galzu and gave Lord Enki the dimensions of how to make the boat, how to cover it with pitch and all of that other stuff. And they took genetic samples and put in there with him. And the other reason Enki wanted to preserve Noah is because Noah was actually his biological son, not just made in the laboratory, but his actual son from mating with a human. Noah was a hybrid. Okay, you can be whatever you choose to be, Malcolm, as long as you're respectful. All are welcome here. Hey, Caleb. I'm doing very well, and I hope you are as well. Yeah, yeah, Stephen. The face that they seen on Mars was the tomb to Alalu. Alalu was actually the one who, I can't say he discovered Earth. He was the first one to get here, according to the Anunnaki texts. And he had been promised rule of Earth, and then they did some dirty, dishonest dealings with him too, because he had been ruler on Nibiru. He challenged Anu for the throne and lost the challenge. And he was going into exile on Nibiru, but he figured he could be a hero if he was able to get through the hammered bracelet and discover, or get to Earth and find the gold, that he would be able to kind of come out of exile. So he did. He took a spaceship, made it through the hammered bracelet, and got to Earth, confirmed that there was gold here, and radioed back to Nibiru to let them know he had made it, and said, "I'll show you where it is and how to get here and all of this, but I want command of Earth." And Anu promised it to him. Then when they got here, they took it away from him, and he got so angry that he challenged Anu again. And in that fight here on Earth, Alalu got so angry when he lost the fight that he bit Anu's privates off. And for that, he was exiled to Mars. And he took one person with him to live out the rest of his days. And he died on Mars. And once he died, they built a shrine there for him. They gave him a decent burial. But the face you see on Mars is a shrine to Alalu. Hey, Lamb. You said if it wasn't for them messing with the human women, there would not be Nephilim. Yeah. Well, actually, Lamb, the flood, they said that the flood was not something that they could have prevented. It was a natural disaster. I think it had to do with the orbit of Nibiru coming kind of close to the Earth, but they knew it was going to come, so they could have preserved a lot more human life. But they didn't, because Enlil wanted us to die. They knew it was going to come. They knew when it was going to come, so they were going to stay to the last minute and then jump in their spaceships and leave and just let everybody die. And Inky said, "No, we don't need to do that." They actually had a meeting back on Nibiru about it, and this council listened to Enlil. Everybody had agreed and said that, yeah, we'll just go ahead and scrap the project and let them drown. Don't tell them nothing. We'll just start over afterwards. And it was, even Ninmah had gone along with Enlil at first because she was in love with Enlil, but she was forbidden to marry him. But after she saw the devastation that had happened, she felt regret in her heart. And she is the one who actually gave us the covenant of the rainbow and promised that humanity would never be destroyed by water again. Again, in the scriptures, they give credit to Yahweh for that. But Yahweh was the one who demanded that we be destroyed by water. Because Lamb, the King of Nawa, yeah, but honestly, all we got to remember, if you understand in the Bible, King of Nawa, that God actually should be Elohim, and the Elohim is plural, but it's not even that many of them that you got to keep up with. Through the human pantheons over time, there was a lot. But the main ones you need to know and understand, that it's always been an issue of sovereignty between two brothers. The Bible tries to convince us that the issue of sovereignty is between Yahweh and Satan. They don't tell you that Yahweh is Satan. The other Elohim, the real issue of sovereignty for Earth was between Enlil and Enki, Yahweh and Enki. The other ones kind of faded to black. Most of them went back. The only ones that really stayed here are the ones that initially came here they stayed so long till physically they could not go back to Nibiru. And according to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, they went into the halls of Amenti and they stay in their Aguanti state, but they reached a point where they stopped actively interacting so much with humans, but they're still here to expand our consciousness. They do incarnate or telepathically communicate or communicate in the astral with people, but they're not ruling like they did during like Bible times and all of that. Hold on a second. And Lamb, with the orbit of Nibiru, it said that it's an elliptical orbit. So it's not, I mean, their actual orbit, one of their stars, 1 year on Nibiru is 3,600 human years. So their orbit comes through basically every 3,000 years here or so. But every one of their orbits does not cause that disaster. I don't know if it's every third orbit, every four, I don't know. But they know because they said during the time of the flood that before the conclusion of 2 more stars on this earth, that there would be another cataclysm coming. And if they know about it and can prepare for it, humanity doesn't have to be destroyed. That was done just because Yahweh wanted us destroyed. But they very well could come, and they may not be able to save everybody, but if they know when it's coming, they can get everybody to high ground. They could get everybody up in their spaceships. Remember that movie Knowing that they showed us in 2009 with Nicolas Cage? Y'all think that's just entertainment. I'm trying to tell you, they be telling us the truth and hiding it in plain sight. It's coming around again. That's why I feel the sense of urgency that I do when I look at the fact that Yeshua pointed to the age of Aquarius and he said he would be coming back. And then we see where we're at and see what's happening around us on the planet and how it correlates to so much to the Revelation story. I believe it's going to be coming. I honestly believe we'll see it in our lifetime, and if not in our lifetime, in our children's lifetimes. I just feel that way. I don't think it's far off at all. The Greek gods were Anunnaki. That's what I say. The in the Greek pantheon, Enki is Zeus. No, Enki is Poseidon. Enlil is Zeus. And I think Athena might have been Isis, but I'm not sure. We're not talking about Jesus right this very moment, Maurice, but we talk about him a lot because he's my main guide. He's the one that opened my eyes to all of this and sent me back into the Anunnaki text to get some stuff that humanity needs to know right now. He's the one that opened my eyes to help me be able to read the Bible with real understanding and not continue to buy into the deception, so to speak. Yeah, Yeshua's name was changed to Jesus. It is a call to Zeus, who is Yahweh. That's what I was saying yesterday when people don't understand when they're praying to Jehovah and ending their prayer in Jesus' name. That's just another way of rerouting that prayer right back to Yahweh. And then saying Amen at the end of it is a binding spell to Marduk, who is Yahweh's nephew. It's so much black magic in Christianity that people have no idea. Like they were talking about, they get mad at me talking about tarot cards and divination and how wrong I am. Did we not just finish talking about all the plagues that Yahweh brought to the nation of Israel? Do y'all not understand that that's black magic? He turned the water to blood to starve out the people, brought biting flies and locusts and gnats, had Moses in on it too, put a stick down. Moses threw his staff on the ground and it became a stick. It became a serpent that ate up the other magic practicing priest. The Pharaoh had magic practicing priests too. And they threw their sticks on the ground, and their sticks became serpents. And Moses threw his stick on the ground, and it became a serpent, and it ate up the other two serpents. That is black magic, sorcery. Yes, Maurice, Yahweh practices black magic and got Christians doing it too. The scriptures tell us anybody that's hung from a tree is cursed. And Yahweh brought them curses to the third generation and the fourth generation. And here's the thing, as long as you keep reenacting a curse, you keep it alive. So what did they tell us to do? They switched people from following the Passover meal to commemorate them leaving Egypt. They said that Yeshua instituted a whole new thing and told them that from henceforth we were to make a new covenant, and we were to drink of his blood and eat of his flesh, and keep doing this in remembrance of him, in remembrance of the time that right after he said that they went out there and hung him on a tree. That is black magic. And we reenact it every single year to keep that curse alive, not only on Yeshua and his bloodline, but on ours by participating in it. And has kept humanity blind and stuck for thousands of years. He shouldn't, God, forever, but he does. And he got the Bible says the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one, and one of the devil's greatest tools is convincing people he don't exist. And that's exactly what's happened. Christians, Jews, and Muslims swear up and down they got the truth, and they all been to Yahweh or El, which is another, basically still routes back to Yahweh. Abrahamic religions got people lost and stuck. But Yeshua said that. He said, after they kill me, there will come one who will deceive the world and lead the nations lost. And what happened? 100 years after they unalived him, up bounces Paul, then declared himself an apostle and wrote that lie in the Bible about how he met Yeshua on the road to Damascus and had a great revelation, and he had a great conversion and blah, 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 blah. And he laid down Christianity and led those people to continue worshiping Yahweh. They remixed it and renamed him Jehovah and got these people still worshiping that dragon. Yes, baby, you can look that up on Google. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, those gospels were written between 70, I think one of them was 60 years after the fact, but maybe I'll say 60, between 60 and 110 years after Yeshua walked this earth. And yet, when they start telling that story about the Last Supper and reinstituting and basically creating the the communion thing that they tell us about, those accounts, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, like I said, they were written 60 to 100 years after Yeshua's time here on earth, yet they all tell the same story, the same exact way, verbatim. That ain't a manipulation, Stephen. That's an out and out lie. That's what they did that repeatedly. The one gospel that was written by somebody who actually walked with Jesus was the Gospel of John. And if you'll note that Last Supper story, that account, the way he mentions, the execution and all of that, but that account, the way that they told it in Matthew, Mark, and Luke is conspicuously absent in the Gospel of John. Hey, Broken Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate you. Hey, Jesus LeBlanc. Yeah, so again, but these are all things that when you gotta be a little bit of a rebel, okay, for this to make sense for you, and to really, really want to I'm not pulling cards right now. I'm gonna try to get on tomorrow during the day to do that, but the evenings have kind of become more of the meat and potatoes of the scriptures and those sort of things. So I'm not going because they'll start coming. And yeah, I can't pull cards tonight, but I will try to get on live earlier tomorrow if you're gonna be around sometime tomorrow, and I can pull some in. Okay. Again, Maurice, that's you're entitled to your opinion, but I know better, respectfully. I didn't make this up, and there's a whole lot of Bible um, theologians and all of that. Some of them have even actually come out to church too. Go listen to Paul Wallace. Go listen to Mauro Bellino. Those were translators of the highest order. Paul Wallace was the archdeacon of the Anglican Church for 33 years, and he absolutely agrees with what I'm saying. In fact, he actually commented. I tagged him on one of my videos, and he commented that I was doing a good job on the channel and all the rest of that. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm not pulling cards, Shamik. Not today. You have to see me tomorrow or something. Paul Wallace, Paulwallis, Maurice. He also has a channel. He has a channel by the name of Paul Wallace. He also has a channel called The Fifth Kind. But he's written a whole series of books, The Eden Conspiracy, The Eden Enigma, all kinds of stuff. Honestly, King Anawa, the way prayer has become different for me, it's a conversation. When I want to talk to Yeshua or Lord Enki, I just talk to him. Yes, Paul Wallace, you said it, you spelled it correctly, what Maurice. I just talk to them. And if you just really got to keep, if you want to keep to the format, because I get it, reprogramming this or unknitting this programming is not an instant thing, and it does take some time to get used to. So if you kind of sort of want to keep that same format, talk to Lord Enki and end your prayer in Yeshua's name, and then say, so mote it be, or Ashe, or and so it is. Just stop saying amen at the end of your prayer so you're not doing binding spells to Amun Ra. Let's get back to some of this other, hold on. Genesis 34. Well, actually, when we were at the foot of Mount Sinai, I'm not going to read this whole chapter, but like I say, Yahweh got so angry about them with that golden calf that he said he was going to kill them all. Joshua and Caleb appealed to Yahweh to try to get him to change his mind. Hello, how was your day? Good. And then the Levites that night executed 3,000 of the nation of Israel to keep Yahweh from killing them all. Blood sacrifice, 3,000 people, because they were worried and did not know whether Yahweh was even going to come back for them or not, because he had left them alone, he had abandoned them for over a month, and they dared to appeal to the God they had been worshiping before he pulled them out of Egypt to try to get some help, and they had to unalive 3,000 people that night to keep Yahweh from killing them all. That's the nature of the God they chose to serve and got most of the world still serving to this day. No, I can't drop. I'm in the middle of a live stream. How am I going to drop a link to him saying what? I said, go check out his channel. I don't have to prove nothing to you, Maurice. If you want to doubt it, go do your homework and check for yourself. I don't have to spoon feed you what I already know just because you want to argue with me. Exactly, Dirty Pickle. He claimed he's an all knowing God, but he behaves like a spoiled child, and not a nice one either. You said in Ezekiel, uh, in Ezekiel, when they're talking about the what those supposedly biblical descriptions of angels, They describe the spaceships and stuff, and I don't know why people can't see and understand that, but okay. Bye, Shady Bite, because we don't have time for foolishness. I don't know what you talking about. I don't like what? Brendan Crow? I have nothing against anybody of any race. We all the same. Every single one of us on this planet that's still around and actually have any manner of intelligence whatsoever, we all have Anunnaki blood of one um, race, if you will, or other. It doesn't make any difference. Racism is a very small minded concept from very small minded people. And truthfully, I can't even hate the player or the game. White folks is the ones that sold the idea of racism because they are truly the minority on the planet. So to get the upper hand, they shifted the idea of minority from meaning less than in number and psychologically sold the idea to melanated people that minority meant less than in appeal, less than in intelligence, less than in all other kinds of things. And to this day, got all kinds of melanated people around this planet believing that they're less than because white people told them that. When the truth of the matter is, white people are kin to melanated people too. But if you really, really want to look at minority, the minority on this planet are white people. They sequestered themselves so long till all of the recessive traits became their dominant traits. Black people can have blue eyes too, but it's a recessive trait. Black people can have silky hair too, but it's a recessive trait. Black people can have light skin too, but it's a recessive trait. So white people basically were black people who stayed sequestered long enough that they bred out their dominant traits and their recessive traits became their dominant traits. And then psychologically, they went on a rampage around the planet to convince everybody that they were better based on their skin color. They're no different than nobody else. They're our cousins too. Guess what, Brandon? Everybody was mixed with Neanderthal. They didn't say which hominid Inky hybridized. He said he found a hominid while he was out in the Abzu that he felt like he could hybridize with the Anunnaki essence or DNA to create a suitable worker. They literally slingshot evolution on this planet by 500,000 years by mixing Anunnaki DNA with the hominid they found here. So why white people got to stand out and want to say that they different because they was mixed with Neanderthal and somebody else mixed with somebody else and all, it don't make no difference. Every last one of us that have any matter of intelligence are only intelligent because we have been mixed with Anunnaki blood. Can somebody please get Shady Bite out of here since he obviously don't have common sense to know that we're having a serious conversation? Well, they did, Stephen. They made different races because Anunnaki simply means those who to earth from heaven came. The Anunnaki, the Atlanteans, were a very diverse culture. When they first came to Nibiru, they were primarily two races of people. But then over time, they united those two races, but they also continued to allow other refugees from the galactic wars. So, truthfully, Anunnaki can be Pleiadian, Lyran, Syrian, all they came from all over the galaxy. But the fact that they were on Nibiru, they called themselves the Atlanteans and they came here. Yeah, and exactly, Brittany. We all came from Africa. They called it the land of Kem, or it was initially called Alkepulan. And Inky and them landed there. They describe landing there. They talk about Adam's calendar and everything else. And then they turned around and Here's the thing. People get upset. You're saying that they tamper with Holy Spirit's creation, lamb. But I have a different the way I look at that and think about that, lamb, maybe it'll help somebody else here too. Because I hear people that want to be upset about the fact that the Anunnaki tampered with our DNA and they did this and they did that and then they want to start hollering about the reptilians, and the people get real angry about that. But you got to understand why they came here in the first place. They didn't come here looking for gold just because they thought gold was shiny and beautiful. They didn't create humans to be a slave race just because they wanted slaves. They came here because their home world on Nibiru was in danger. Nibiru was starting to experience holes in its atmosphere. Their ozone layer, for want of a better word, I'm not sure it was actually ozone, but their ozone layer was having holes in it in their atmosphere. They were starting to have all kinds of famines because the weather was off, the crops were dying, all kinds of crazy. Oh, that's so lovely of you, molester. You take your, listen to you. You so disgusting. You named yourself Mo Lester, and you got the nerve to want to throw racial slurs at me. You're pathetic, sir. Pathetic. Can one of my mods please get that clown out of here? Yes, Nibiru, as in Planet X, Burgundy. Absolutely. They were having volcanic eruptions. They were having famine because their crops were dying. Their weather patterns were off. They were really getting into a desperate situation. And their scientist on Nibiru said, if it's a Mantika and a Bindi, Kirk, you can look them up. I'm not going to take time to explain what they are now, but yeah. Hi, Navindanka and Francis, yeah. So their scientist on Nibiru had determined that if they could get their hands on enough gold, they could pulverize the gold and launch it into the atmosphere and basically patch the holes in their atmosphere to save their home world. Hi, Dragon Tamer. Yeah, basically, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it was actually ozone like we have there, but probably because they were able to breathe our air without breathing apparatus. So apparently, the atmosphere on Nibiru was very similar to the atmosphere on Earth. They might be giants, or maybe not. I don't know. King and Nawa, they don't reveal themselves because Yahweh, Enlil, demanded that they not reveal themselves to us. He said if we were going to do this, when Enki came there, and again, let me back up a little bit. Not necessarily anymore, really, to this day, kind of, sort of, but maybe not. Yeah. But once they came to Earth, they didn't immediately start trying to make humans. They stayed here and worked that gold themselves for over 30,000 years. It wasn't until the workers that they had sent, because at one time they had up to 600 workers here trying to mine the gold, and they weren't getting it fast enough. They were not physically suited for working in the African heat. And they basically were royalty. Their society was so old and so advanced that they didn't have slavery and things like that. Again, it wasn't just grunt work or whatnot. They were basically royalty. But they volunteered to come here to try to save their home world. They were digging this gold and doing all this stuff that they could do. And finally, after 30 plus thousand years, the workers were like, you know what? We ain't getting this gold fast enough. We're not suited for this. We're tired. We ain't got no women. We ain't got no. You got to get us some help or we're going to mutiny, period. And that's when Enki said, it ain't that they didn't know how to work 30,000 years working in a mine. Are you kidding, Brandon? Would you want to do that? Mining is some of the nastiest hard. Look how many mining accidents and stuff we have on on the earth to this day. Gold mines, coal mines, all of that. Mining is nasty business. We'll get there, Risque. We'll get there. Hold on. So when, yeah, so when they got to the point where the workers were going to mutiny, Thoth and Enki were geneticists anyway. They just did it just for fun, because when they created the Eden, and Enlil took that for his house, in the Abzu where Enki went and built his house, they also built what they call the House of Life. It was a genetic laboratory, and him and Enlil and Thoth and Ninmah liked to do genetic experimentation. Look at the walls of the pyramids. They got proof there of the types of genetic experimentation they like to do. And Enki said, while I was out exploring and looking for this gold and stuff, I saw a primate out there, or a hominid. He did not say a primate, he said a hominid. He said, I saw a hominid out there, and it's furry and it's this and that, but it walks on two legs and blah, blah, blah. And I think that if we did some our little genetic razzle dazzle, that we might be able to fashion a primitive worker that could be better suited to work in these mines. And so they started working on it, and it wasn't like they immediately had success. According to their information, they had several iterations of humans in the experiments that just did not work out. They had some that were covered in hair, some that weren't that intelligent, some whose hands and limbs weren't long enough, and all kinds of stuff. And finally they created the Lulu, and he looked good, but he just wasn't intelligent enough. And the next round that they tried, Ninmah got the idea to fertilize the zygote in a clay vessel instead of using the crystal vessels that they had brought with them from Nibiru. She said perhaps this carbon-based life form needs an earthen vessel, and they fertilized the zygote in the clay vessels. That's where we get the story in the Bible about how a man came from the dust of the earth and all of that. But once the zygote germinated, she also said, let me carry this in my womb. And she did. She carried the Adamu in her womb. Enki's wife, Damkina, carried Eve in her womb. And even still, once they were born, they were still sterile. Adam and Eve were not a complete success at their birth. And that's when Thoth came in. He was like, I know how to fix this. Yes, a two-legged animal. Yes. A two-legged animal, and they mixed their DNA with the two-legged animal's DNA and came up with Homo sapiens sapiens. The forbidden fruit in the Bible it was forbidden, only that it was a tree, the tree of life, or the tree of knowledge. The knowledge in and of itself was not an actual tree. That was Enki. His conscience bothered him, and he didn't want to live that lie no more. When they made Adam and Eve, Enlil, Yahweh, insisted that we were never to see their faces. We were never to know that there weren't gods. And he insisted that Enki put a worship gene in us to make us worship them. And they were supposed to present themselves as gods to us. That was Enki's demand. And Enlil's demand, Yahweh. Enki, as the geneticist, did as he was told, but he felt so bad about it, it bothered him morally to be making a worship gene in people, so he gave us the ability to turn it off. And he went along with the they can't see our faces and the this and the that, but after a while it bothered his conscience so bad that he eventually told Eve the truth, and she turned her worship gene off. That part. Honestly, we won't get in the Vatican until after Satan is destroyed, after he's deposed, when New Earth is well and fully established and all of Enlil's minions are lined up. That's when we'll find out what all is in the Vatican. They will not, because honestly, now again, this is just my opinion, and I didn't read this nowhere. I got this in meditation. But from what I have read in the Bible and all the rest of this stuff, and knowing how they behave about the Vatican, it is my humble opinion that the Vatican is one of Yahweh's houses. That's one of the reasons we can't get down there. Yeah, they did a whole lot of information grabbing, and there's a lot of hidden information down there, but I believe they also are literally, that was one of his summer homes or something. Yeah, all the Luciferian stuff in there in the Vatican, because that's that Yahweh shit. They've got a sanctuary in the Vatican that if you're standing in the pulpit and looking out towards the back doors of that sanctuary, it literally looks like the head of a serpent. Enlil, yes, Yahweh, Jehovah, Enlil, that's all the same person. Now, let me go back. I have no idea what Deepak talking about and don't want to. Where were we? Okay. I'm not sure where, like I said, we can go somewhere else in there in the conversation. But now, what I was saying when I mentioned all of that, people get angry about what they did, but face it, if, again, like I said, walk a mile in somebody's shoes. If you were so intelligent, say what now? You saw that. See, Brandon? People think I'm lying. I've seen the pictures. I haven't personally been to the Vatican, but if you look around in the Vatican, there's an awful lot of serpentine artwork, lots of snakes, lots of demon, gargoyle, that kind of stuff. All of that's very Luciferian type artwork all over the Vatican. But when I saw that sanctuary with that head of the serpent there, I'm like, see, there you go. Yeah, go look them up. They got pictures of it. But back to what I was saying, as far as not being angry with them, if your home world was in jeopardy and you knew that just over the way, you know how to get to it, there's a planet over there that ain't got no intelligent life on it, but you heard from the legends in your home world that there is plenty of gold on it and you need gold to save your home world, why wouldn't you go to Earth and go get it? And if you got the genetic capability to take a two-legged animal that you see roaming around when you get there and infuse it with your DNA to create a being that's better suited to mine the gold than you are, because you're about 15, 20 feet tall and really can't squeeze down in there, and working in that African heat is whooping your ass, wouldn't you turn around and do it too? You really can't blame them for doing what they did. Enki had a full meltdown existential crisis over it, but he did what he felt he needed to do. Now, yes, it got out of hand because Enlil is a raggedy SOB, but you still can't get mad at the initial intent. They needed to save their home world. And honestly, I ain't mad either way, because if it weren't for them, we'd still be out there roaming in trees with our knuckles dragging the ground. No, it's not sympathy for the devil. It's not sympathy for the devil. It's sympathy for a race of people that came and did what they needed to do. I have no sympathy for Enlil. I'm talking about empathy and sympathy for Lord Enki. Things went out of hand. The hell that we living in right now is because of Enlil. It ain't because of Enki. Yeah, they really didn't do a bad job. The problem on earth is not in the creation of us. The problem on earth is too many of our ignorant people chose to serve Yahweh and put our whole planet in jeopardy. We have been hoodwinked and bamboozled by Abraham's choice and Moses's choice And Muhammad's choice, peace be upon him, they got 3/4 of the world worshiping a dragon who cannot stand humanity. And because they have worshiped him and followed him for so long, they have adopted his nasty, violent, misogynistic principles. Because when you worship a God who behaves like that, that's why I was looking up these scriptures initially to show people the nature of Yahweh. If it's okay for your God to behave that way, and your preachers can sit there and tell you that everything that he's done in these scriptures is justified and it's loving, even though he's condoning rape and murder and lying and sending curses and plagues and all those sorts of things, and you sit up on Sunday and go, yep, that's right, he's a loving God, he's good, he was justified and all of that. After a while, that programs you to become so desensitized to evil that you accept evil. You become just as evil as the God you worship. Those are the characteristics of your God. Your Bible tells you that, did I not tell you ye are gods? And they tell us we're made in God's image. So if it's okay for him to do it, over time, over thousands of years of accepting that it's okay for him to do it, humanity has accepted that it's okay for us to do it too. They knew slavery was wrong on Nibiru. They had abolished slavery hundreds of thousands of years ago on Nibiru. But Yahweh, in the Mosaic Law, gives everybody outlines this mess about how, and it's the hypocrisy of it with that, to me, with the slavery thing, because part of the scriptures tell them if you turn around and steal a man, then you are cursed. But the scriptures above that talk about taking a slave girl, and the ones below that talk about taking slaves from people on the way. At what point is a person not your neighbor? Oh, it's wrong for me to take a slave among the people I know on my street, but if they in the next town over, it's okay for me to make slaves out of them. It's idiotic hypocrisy. John ain't excluded in Revelation. The revelation was given to John according to Revelation. It's a revelation given by Yeshua or Jesus Christ according. Let's see what it says here. Revelation chapter 1. Now, most of it ain't got nothing to do with him, but he was the one who received it. He ain't excluded from it. He received it. John supposedly, it's the revelation to John, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to show his servants the things that must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to his servant John, who bore witness to the word of God and to the testimony of Jesus Christ, even to all that he saw. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and keep what is written in it, for the time is near. So he ain't excluded. He was the one that wrote it according to them. Because it talks about John to the 7 churches that are in Asia. And he wrote it. But and again, when you start talking about the New Testament, some of this has to be kind of sort of taken with a grain of salt. But the reason I read in Revelation so much, as much as I do, is because I do also understand under Luciferian law, they have to tell you the truth, even if they hide it in plain sight. This is a book for mystics. So you can still glean some truth out of it, whether they actually, like I said, whether the people who actually were supposed to have written it or not wrote it, even through the letters in from Acts all the way through Hebrews, all of that mess is written by Paul. And in my humble opinion, I believe Paul is absolutely the Antichrist. I said it with my whole chest. But there's still some stuff in there that's of some benefit. He wrote Hebrews and told the truth. That's the thing that I'm saying. He messed around and told the truth. In Hebrews, when he's talking about faith and naming off all them faithful men and women of old, and got right down to the last couple of verses and messed around and told the truth. He said, and for all of them faithful men and women of old and all their faithful acts, not one of them saw their promises fulfilled. Oops. Probably didn't mean to give away that part, But again, the preachers stand up there on Sunday morning and remix that, or they forget about that verse. They quick to make you memorize Hebrews 11:1, giving you the definition of what faith is. A different God that John is talking to about are being seen. And now that part, Lamb, we agree. When you read Revelation, if you read it with discernment, when you get down to the end, you realize there again in Genesis there's more than one Elohim being mentioned. And when I didn't read the account, but after the flood, when the rainbow was given as a covenant, it talks about God, God, God. But again, like I said, if you substitute Elohim and remember the Elohim is plural, in that story in Genesis, more than one Elohim is mentioned. In Job, where there's that conversation between the two that they try to play it off like it's Yahweh and Satan, I believe that was Enlil and Enki having a conversation. There's more than one Elohim mentioned. He said who's not going with the Elohim? The Bible Anunnaki is all connected. Yeah, there are different, but that's what I'm saying. In the Bible, they genericized it and made everywhere that it should have said Elohim, El Shaddai, or El Elyon, they just genericized it and put God in the singular, which is part of the reason people are so confused. They've given this notion of one singular, all powerful, almighty, Alpha and Omega Sky Daddy, because that's the lie that Yeshua, that Yahweh told. But that's bye, Michael Dorsey. Goodbye. Do your research because you'll find out. I've been doing this research for a minute. If you don't agree with what I got to say, Michael, make your own channel and say whatever you like. But I'm not the only one saying this, and I'm not the only one making it up. I didn't make that up. Circumcision, again. Now, YD, the idea of circumcision, where it initially came from, you gotta, if you go to what they said in the Anunnaki text, Yahweh despises humans so much that he don't even like the fact that we looked different. And one of the main deciding factors or different features when they perfected the Adamo was that Anunnaki males do not have a foreskin, but human males do. And so Yahweh insisted if you're going to be in his camp, that you got to get rid of that foreskin. But truthfully, there is no actual medical reason for that. A couple of decades ago, they tried to convince people that it was medically sound for you to have to be circumcised. That's a mess they made up in America. Because truthfully, if a man is taught to clean himself properly, there's no reason, as most of the world doesn't circumcise. Nowhere. So Jesus is not God, and he never told anyone. He's God only in that the word God means Elohim, which means powerful ones. But God in the sense that Christianity teaches us God, no, he's not. But then God isn't God in the sense that they teach us in Christianity. They won't know where it's 9. That's why I encourage people, if you're curious, subscribe to the channel, start listening to my playlist, Modern Mystic Loved Ones. Start listening to that playlist, The Lost Book of Enki. Stick around for the lives. We'll answer questions as much as we can. I've got 2 more chapters or tablets in the Emerald tablets to go through. And then after that, we're going to start in on Zechariah Sitchin's 12th planet. Hold on. A lot of people have encountered Christ, even people that don't have NDAs. Mick, Don, I am clairaudiently linked with Yeshua. In 2020, I when the world shut down, I did a whole lot of meditating, salt baths, out barefoot, doing the breath work, the whole nine. I basically spent that whole year sitting about 800 feet away from the Gulf of Mexico, fasting, meditating, breath work, like for real. And it reached a point where my clairaudience kicked in to such a point that I couldn't even doubt whether I was truly clairaudient, because I started getting information that I honestly didn't know. I had to go and look it up online to see if it was true. And that's when I could no longer deny that I was receiving clairaudiently. And shortly after that, I asked if any of the ascended masters that were willing to work with me would make themselves known to me. And Saint Germain and Yeshua and Thoth immediately came in. The Gulf of Mexico. Yeah. Hold on. Let me see. Did I catch Dr. Stephen Greer? I have not, Stephen. I wrote it down. I've still got to go back and catch up on some stuff. I was looking at these scriptures today, and I actually did another chapter in the Emerald Tablets, as well as another little spoken thing. And I went and pulled cards to do a reading for the collective, like cleanse the cards and all of that. So no, I didn't watch that documentary yet, but I've written down a bunch of stuff that I need to look up. Now, King Anawa, as far as the Great Mother, truthfully, what people don't understand, because we've been sold the idea of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, but for real, if they had not been trying to overly masculinize religion, it would have been the Father, the Mother, and the Son anyway. The idea of the Great Mother, when the creator of all, began to, or made the decision to separate, divide itself unto itself, the first division would have been into the masculine and feminine principle, therefore the father and the mother. And then they began to create, because it is the feminine principle that births. It's still God in that sense, but yeah, you can't really create without a feminine principle. Do I think AI, wait, do I think it's all an AI and IA creation? No, not really. You talking about the Great Awakening, as in what's happening to humanity right now, or are you referring to a particular book or something? My Cinema Gaming, because we are going through a Great Awakening period. This we are segueing from the age of of Pisces into the zodiacal age of Aquarius, which is also the golden age, the age of information. And as Gaia is awakening and ascending, so is humanity. There will be a mass consciousness. If you've ever heard of critical mass, there is a point that when enough people awaken, it will create a ripple effect of an even more mass awakening. But that's one of the reasons why I'm speaking out right now. The star seeds, the first wave of star seeds that came through, basically just gave birth to the second wave. I'm in the second wave, but we are supposed to hold the energy of the Christ consciousness grid, but we're also, some of us that actually were able to awaken and begin ascending, are supposed to teach the subsequent waves of star seeds that are coming in, and it will just continue and continue. When the like the indigos and the crystal children and all of them started coming through, they are going to be activated in a very unique way as well, I do believe, before their generations play all the way out. And the autistic children that started coming in, there are so many of them. People don't even understand. They want to blame autism on the chemicals and the vaccines and things that we have. Those children will be autistic regardless. A lot of them react badly to the chemicals and dyes and the vaccines and all, and it makes them go further inward. But those children are autistic because they are fourth and fifth dimensional ready beings. Uh-oh. Well, if you create bad, then that's on you. You could choose to not create bad, crazy baby. Everybody got choices here. And as Meek Mill says, it's levels to this shit. So if you choose to dabble in darkness and create bad stuff, then if bad stuff happen to you and come to you, that's on you. You're welcome to stay here and learn, and maybe you'll turn to light. Who knows? People be worried about the wrong thing. You worry about 240 dimensions. Learn to navigate this one and see if you can escape this one. That's all you really need to worry about. Don't worry about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15 dimensions and all of that stuff out there. Master this one so you can escape this one first. Because Thoth tells us that's the key to it. We stay trapped here in our own arrogance and ignorance. We be worried about the wrong thing. I see here so many people. You got to get to the Father. Where's the original one? Where's it? Do you know how we sound? We sound like petulant children stomping our feet, demanding to see the manager. I don't want to do this. Whatever. I got to get all of them. Yes, religion. It's not fake. It's just a deception. They made it. So, I mean, obviously it's real, but it's not, like you said, it's not the truth, Kenji. We were not supposed to be worshiping anything or anyone. I have no idea what you're talking about, crazy baby, but if you keep spamming craziness, you'll be out of here. I can tell you that. I don't, so, saying what, Kenji? What is it that you were thanking me for saying about religion, about us not supposed to be worshiping anything? If you stop and think about it, though, when the scriptures say the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked ones, think about what that actually means. Okay, what about Barbelo? There's nothing wrong with Barbelo, but one of her creations, y'all debate. Oh, it's something wrong with him, for sure. But again, you worried about Barbelo. We ain't even got to get that far. That's still, in a way, when people want to still go bypass all of the crap that's here and go reaching all the way up to the eons, they're still, in a way, looking for something to worship. Why? Again, I get that it's hard turning off the worship gene sometimes, but we'd be worried about the wrong thing. Like I said, it's literally, again, you're asking about the main God because you're looking for something to worship. You have not turned off your worship gene. The main God does not require worship of us. That's the lie Yahweh set us up for. That part. You said, tell you people are Chinese. What? I don't know what that means, but anyway. Yeah, it is fear because we've been told if we don't get it right, we're going to go to hell. We're going to die. We're going to this. We're going to be displeasing. We're going to all that other stuff. But look at all of the fear that was part of, and I may save some of this because I had lots of scriptures written down, and we can go into some more tomorrow because I think we do need to stay on this a little bit to help people see the ground isn't really going to swallow you up because you're curious enough to ask these questions. Yeshua told us we're supposed to ask these questions. Church religion tells us don't ask no questions. Just sit down, plunk your butt in that chair, and by all means leave your 10% on the way before you leave out the door. But that keeps you stuck in ignorance. They have deliberately misled and bamboozled people. And most people don't want to accept the fact that it's deliberate. Just like most people, well, now they're starting to understand that our government really don't give a F about us and is intentionally doing some stuff. But most people have been so conditioned in the matrix that if a politician, a school teacher, a religious leader, or a person with a white lab coat on, they ain't even got to really be a doctor. Let them put a white lab coat or a set of scrubs on, and people will listen to them like everything they say out their mouth is gospel. That's programming, people. Thank you. Thank you. Right, Psychic Peach, you get it. You get it. People don't understand how we've been programmed. And Lord Enki literally said that the reason he commissioned this book was so that one day a chosen one might find it and translate it and be able to help wake humanity up. That book and this one right here, the Emerald Tablets. If you and this is father and son, literally father and son. Lord Enki had Andupsar the scribe write this one, and Thoth left us with the Emerald Tablets to help wake us up and shake us up. Because unless or until we can awaken to the reality of what's happening here, what's happening with Barbelo and all the rest of them ain't even gonna matter. Because we can't get to fourth and fifth and sixth and eighth and 240th dimension until we master the third dimension. It's levels to this shit, and we don't get to skip the levels. Say what? Oh, you said thank you. You've been watching videos to get the knowledge of what was left out of the Bible and search for truth. Honestly, Christy, that's what I'm gonna be doing. And I thought at first when I accepted the assignment, so to speak, and I get it because I debated with these people have no idea when they come on here talking, trying to come at me. I just have to laugh at it now because, truthfully, it was a lot of the fear that kept me from speaking regularly for a long time because I was afraid of not even so much of getting it wrong, but people not wanting to hear what I had to say. But Yeshua let me know he spent 18 years in preparation for his ministry and 3 straight years of every single day out there trying to tell them knuckleheads, and they still didn't get it. So I don't really need to think that I'm going to be able to come out here and say this one time, and that's what it is, because people have been programmed so hard. And the thing that makes it a little bit different with me is that I unplugged from a lot of the stuff in the Matrix a while back. I stopped watching regular television in like 1999, 2000. Occasionally, if I'm a captive audience going to spend a weekend with somebody that watches a lot of TV or whatever, I might catch a program or two here or there. But I can't even tell you none of the series that are on television now because I don't watch mainstream television like that. I watch some of the old shows sometimes that I used to enjoy. I might catch a season or something on Prime Video or watch something on YouTube or whatever, but most of the time I'm on YouTube, and most of what I watch on YouTube are channels that are giving information either along this lines or talking about the history of the planet or something to do with tarot or some kind of spirituality. I don't do a whole lot of Real Housewives of where the hell ever and all that kind of stuff. And because I unplugged from that type of programming, it made me more sensitive to be able to see the program when I'm exposed to it. And it allowed me to open my mind a little bit or to dare to buck the status quo. Because that's the truth right there, is why most people can't hear this and don't want to understand it. Because they're so afraid of being wrong, they don't want to buck the status quo. I don't give a shit about the status quo. Sorry about my language, but I really don't care about the status quo anymore because once I saw it was a lie, like I said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once I understood, well, I never believed in a burning hell. The religion that I was raised in made it very clear that that's not actually a biblical principle. And once I did the research on that and was like, they said that, but it ain't just them. When you track it down, you cannot find a real biblical basis for the hellfire teaching. That is a fear tactic of the church. Well, that's not. Yeshua is the way and the truth and the life, but the problem is, McDon, God isn't everywhere and everything. in one sense he is, but in another sense, there is a being here on this planet who has purported himself to be God the Almighty, and he has three-fourths of the planet believing he is God the Almighty, and therefore they worship him, and they wrap themselves up in a whole lot of deception and black magic and violence and oppression. And so they can't just cavalierly take the idea that God is everywhere and everything, because they'll stay wrapped up in the lie if they don't wake up and acknowledge the lie. I have not heard of Sandman the series, but I'll jot it down. And if I get so much stuff jotted down, I might get to it eventually and see what's going on with it. Like I say, I'm not averse to looking at these things, but I just hadn't. Like I say, if it don't come across my screen on YouTube, I don't be seeing it because I don't watch. I genuinely don't watch regular television. Got a 50-inch TV on the wall right now, and the only thing I use it for is to log into YouTube. My roommate has his TV upstairs, and I think he watches like ESPN and a bunch of stuff. We got cable, or yeah, his satellite or whatever he got up there. I don't know. I don't watch it at all, ever. I literally got YouTube on there right now, even for the music. Occasionally, I'll turn on Pandora, but I can't tell you the last time I turned on a television to watch anything on mainstream primetime television, because once I came to understand that they intentionally use a lot of subliminal programming, they intentionally use flicker rates and things like that to hypnotize us, the psychology of the advertising spaces, the psychology of a lot of the agendas that I saw being laid down when they started pushing the paranormal agenda, and then they started pushing the homosexual agenda, and then they started pushing the narcissistic agenda through mainstream television. I was done with it. Right. Exactly, Christy. Exactly. And I'm glad the Lord's Supper, you're supposed to be uncomfortable with it, and for more than one reason. Hold on, let me write this down. Because here's the thing, everybody is so busy panting after the Lord's Supper. Okay, I'll check it. I let my Netflix subscription go a long time ago, but I might have to actually go back and check it out, because there are a couple series that I've been told. Like I think the last series I actually watched, it was really cool. Like that was American Gods, but I know that there are some like esoterically based series that I probably should watch, and I just hadn't taken time because I get so bogged down with so much stuff to read and all that. But I wrote it down, so I'll get to it eventually. I need to. It's actually, there's quite a bit of Stargate on YouTube as well if you look for it. Maybe not entirely, but you can find quite a. And I know some of the Stargate movies are on there, but yeah, I need to, because I was a Trekkie. I've seen every Star Trek episode for the older ones. I think they did came back recently and did something, but I saw the Star Trek episodes and the spinoffs and stuff, but I wasn't really into Stargate because I didn't understand. I wasn't spiritually attuned enough to really get it at that point. But now that I know, I probably will go back and watch Stargate. Because interestingly enough, most of the places that I've ever wanted to go on this world, come to find out, was a Stargate. I wound up in Sarasota. That's Stargate 3. And that's one of my favorite places I've ever been to or lived on this planet. To some degree, they are. Yeah, they are telling us about the Anunnaki. But Christy, back to what you talking about the Lord's Supper. The idea that they were getting ready to go in for, people don't even understand in the scriptures when they were getting ready to go in, they call it the Lord's Supper or the Last Supper. But the thing that Yeshua told them to go and secure the room for was the Passover meal. Yeshua was in a scene, but he was still a Jew. He was, and they were Jews. The Wheel of Time was really good. I did see that. I forgot about that. I saw. The Wheel of Time, and that was super good. Um, Umbrella Academy, I think I watched that. That was really good too. Yeah, it's some other stuff. I'll get to those other things later. But back to the Lord's Supper, they were told to do that. And again, Matthew, Mark, and Luke are the ones that stress that. And I have serious issues with their gospel accounts because of when they were written and the way it's described in there. It's very obviously a plagiarized document. Let's just put it there. Okay. Um, but here's the thing. If Yeshua was actually keeping the Passover meal, he would not have told anybody to stop keeping the Passover meal, because Yahweh specifically, when he told them what the Passover meal was to entail, he told them that they were to keep doing that forever. So they might have decided to add something along to it, but Christianity came around and said that Yeshua's communion replaces the Passover meal, and that's not true. Yeshua was still keeping the Passover meal. And the crazy part about it, I don't even know, well, a seriously practicing Jew would be keeping the entire Passover. But Christians, even when they want to sit down, if they were going to have the Passover meal, I know they're not keeping it. They had to slaughter it was a yearling goat or sheep. It could be either one, but it had to be a year, and it couldn't be, it had to be perfectly healthy and this and that. But they had to slaughter that yearling goat or sheep, and they were to dress with the sandals, and I forgot what the clothing, but they basically were dressing ready to roll, and they had to have bitter greens with it, and they had to put the blood, like I said, still turn around and put the blood over the door, and they had to eat every bit of that goat or lamb that night. They could not have any leftovers come morning. And for the entire week of Passover, they were not to have any leaven in their house. All of their bread had to be unleavened bread for an entire week of Passover. I know good and full well ain't no Christians doing that. None of them. And he said, do not stop doing it. Do I think the Anunnaki are still in control with the Egypt? No, no. Yeah, they, like I said, they were in there for the Passover. But again, First Corinthians, JP, was written by Apostle Paul. That's what I'm saying. The Apostle Paul came in and took it upon himself to deceive Christians by telling them all of this newfangled stuff that they were going to do. Those letters to the Ephesians, to the Philippians, to the congregation at Thessalonica, to the congregation at Philippi, he was writing to different groups of people who had been followers of Yeshua, and the tone in every single one of those letters was basically, y'all been doing it wrong, you ain't ish, and what you're gonna do is start doing it the way I'm telling you here moving forward. And he instituted some things that directly defied what Yeshua was teaching people. He led them lost. You could put all the symbolism in it you want. They were practicing black magic, so of course he was taken at those symbolic hours for the Passover. But that still does not allow anybody to turn around and change Yahweh's rules when he told them that the rules were unchangeable when he gave them to them. He told them that they were supposed to be doing the Passover, keeping the Passover forever. And Paul came along and decided that Christians didn't need to do it no more. But there's a principle involved, because anytime in the scriptures that any unbelievers wanted to be adopted into the nation of Israel, they allowed people to convert to religious Judaism, even if they were not Jews by birth. But they had to follow the same exact rules as a Jew by birth. Yes, they whether they was grown or not, they weren't circumcised at the 8th day because they came into faith as an adult. Fine, you can become a Jew, but you're gonna be circumcised. That's how they wound up killing all them folks. Remember when Dinah got compromised and they lied to all of those men and said to make peace that they were going to join the Israelites and all of that, and they had all of them grown men circumcised, and while they was laid up from being circumcised, they went in and slaughtered them all. Paul wasn't authorized. He ain't have the spiritual juice to turn around and release nobody from what Yahweh commanded. If you claim you're going to serve Yahweh, you got to serve him the way he insisted, not the way Paul said. That part. But Paul celebrated Passover himself, but Christians today do not, because Paul said that he released them from it. That it was fortunate for us that Yeshua was willing to bear the curse of being hung from a tree for our sins. That's the lie Paul told. You can put it, honestly, I'm not going to continue arguing with that because I know what I'm talking about. You can put as many scriptures as you want to up there until the moderators make you invisible, JP. I know what it said. And he continued to do that, but he wasn't authorized to release nobody from the Passover. And who is Salmon Tufok? I don't know who that is and don't really care. Unless you call yourself being funny. Because the things that I'm saying, I didn't make them up. I'm not the only one saying them. I'm not even the only one on YouTube saying them. I'm just connecting the dots in an easier way because I read a lot of stuff that a lot of people ain't going to take the time to read. So I'll break it down and give them the Cliff Notes version, if you will. Again, I'm saying maybe I should care who he is, but I have no idea who he is. So how am I going to waste my time caring about somebody that I don't know who he is? And he talking about he's watching this stream, so oh well, let him watch. Because again, I'm not lying. If I was somewhere lying, I would be concerned. I'm just telling the truth. The Sabbaths, yeah, they don't. That's another thing Christians don't know and don't understand. They moved. Was it Nero? I think they switched Shabbat from Saturday to Sunday to gain that whole Roman worship thing, but that still throws them completely off. He instituted a Saturday Sabbath. And again, it's a lot of folks that supposedly considered a legend. It's a lot of other folks that declare themselves a legend. If he is indeed a legend and he's watching it, thank you, welcome. I'm happy for you, all the rest of that. But if I don't know who he is, I don't know who he is. I'm not going to sit here and lie or bow and scrape. Obviously he's a human being like anybody else. So if he's not a legend to me, why do I have to bow and scrape for him because he's a legend for you? God bless you too. Like I say, I'm going to look him up. And if he is indeed watching this stream, I'm happy for him and I'm happy for me too. That's nice. But back to the Sabbath, Yahweh instituted a Sabbath. Christians then moved it from Saturday to Sunday. But the Saturday Sabbath is not the only Sabbath that we're supposed to be keeping. Under the Mosaic law, they had the weekly Sabbath, there was a monthly Sabbath, there was an entire Jubilee year where the entire year was a Sabbath year. I'm not finna get into that with you, Mick Don. it definitely not by Yahweh. You know I'm not messing with Yahweh. So I don't, if you want to call an Elohim, if I have to bless you by any Elohim, it would be by Lord Enki. And if you don't want that blessing, you don't have to receive it. But you can go on about your business. Because I'm not finna argue no more. We on to something else. But yeah, so they migrated the prescribed Sabbath and completely ignore the Sabbath week and the Sabbath year. But you claim you worship Yahweh. Yahweh didn't release his people from none of them things. He said, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt keep my holy days unto me holy. He told them in the 10 Commandments they must continue to keep his holy days. And Christians do not do that at all. But again, this is part of the knowing the nature of the God you've chosen to serve. And after I started understanding the nature of the God that they had chosen to serve and the one my parents had tried to sign me up for, I decided I had had enough and I stepped away from it. I renounced my dedication to Yahweh because I don't want to continue to worship a dragon. He gave the Israelites the Mosaic law, understanding it was impossible for them to keep it, to make them psychologically understand and constantly telling them how they're worthy of death. Why would I want to bow to a God like that? I'm trying to see where we go. And I think it was Brittany that had mentioned the sacrifice of Isaac. That's what kind of did it for her with Christianity. Yeah, I was kind of done with that too. After you made this man wait 25 years before you delivered a promise to him for this son. He 100 years old when you finally give him this son, and then you turn around and tell him to walk that same son that you finally blessed him with. You want to test his faith still by telling him to take that son up to the top of the mountain and make a burnt sacrifice to you as a test of faith. Even Isaac was like, well, Daddy, we're supposed to be going up to make an offering to Yahweh. Where's the lamb? Where's the goat? And Abraham told me, oh, don't worry about it. The Lord will provide. Isaac was getting nervous. Why would you put somebody under that kind of mental stress? Yeah, the preacher always tell that story, and it's so good because the Lord provided and they found a ram in the thicket. But you put this man under extreme mental duress for days, if not weeks, by telling him you've blessed him with this son, finally gave this man a child at the age of 100. Now he got to hike this child up to the top of the hill and cut his throat in service to you. What kind of God plays that kind of mental torture games? It's disgusting. You think? Yeah, he a narcissist. Absolutely, Antoine. Ain't no might be to it. He for sure a narcissist. Yeah, that right there, that should be the end of anybody wondering why or how. Like I said, if they were curious about the nature of the God they serve, that should tell you something right there. But I want to read this account in Judges because people don't understand. Hold on. Let's see, Joshua. If I can even find Judges. Hold on. Oh, I know what I can do. You know what? Anyway, this is how you're programmed. because you're programmed to think that he's good. That's why people tolerate slavery and rape and abuse and all the crap on the planet. Talking about anybody who doesn't have a close relationship with God would think he's abusive, but he's not. Oh, he's absolutely abusive. He's so abusive that Revelation says he's going to be destroyed. That's how abusive he actually is. People don't understand the nature of the God they serve. That's why I'm here teaching. No, I understand what you're saying, Stephen, but I do, when they still insist on coming in here and making ignorant statements like that, I do need to address them, because one of these days, instead of hating, if they stick around long enough, they might actually learn something. Then leave. Why are you here? If I can't teach you anything, why are you here? But the preachers and the pastors and the imams can teach you something, because everything you know and believe about religion, you was taught by a human, my dear. Lord have mercy. I'm trying to find Judges. Hold on, excuse me. The pages are so thin in this book, I can't even flip to it because there's, let's see, 187. Okay, here we go. Okay, then if I can't teach you nothing and you weren't taught by a human, I'm going to be nice enough to make you go on out of here then too. So there we go. Joshua, Judges 19. Hold on. This one gonna knock your socks off right here. Let me see. Judges 19, and I think the verses I want are 25 through 30. Hold on. As they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, worthless fellows, surrounded the house, beating on the door. And they said to the old man, the master of the house, bring out the man who came into your house, that we may know him. And they are talking about knowing him in the biblical sense. And the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, no, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Since this man has come into my house, do not do this vile thing. Behold, here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. Let me bring them out now, violate them, and do with them what seems good to you. But against this man do not do this outrageous thing. But the men would not listen to him. So the men seized his concubine and made her go out to them. And they knew her and abused her all night until the morning. And as the dawn began to break, they let her go. And as morning appeared, the woman came and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was until it was light. Do y'all hear what we just read? Now, they used the euphemism, they knew her. They graped her until she fell unalive at the doorstep in the morning. And according to this scripture, that was all right, long as they didn't touch the man of God that came to visit. That part. Hi, Muhammad, and no, I did not speak Arabic. That's the nature of the God that humanity has chosen to serve. He down with that. He was down with them killing a whole tribe. He cut her into pieces and scattered her body parts. In that other story, like I said, when Dinah was violated, they lied to those men and said that they would make peace with them, but they had to get circumcised so that they could become practicing Jews. And while they were recovering from their circumcision, They went in and unalived all of those men. And Yahweh was cool with that. In the Mosaic Law, like I say, they give all of this stuff about how you can't steal a man from amongst you, but slavery was all right. They outline all kinds of rules for the slave master and the slave. Yahweh is cool with that. That's the nature of the God Abraham and Moses chose to serve. And by default, because people believed, and honestly, it ain't even that people believed it, it was beaten into people. When Christianity was formed, Emperor Constantine created this religion, and then they spread it around the planet on the end of a spear in the name of a land grab for all of these different countries under the crown. But they started out, like I said, it started primarily right there in Rome. And then they had the Inquisitions and the Holy Wars and the this and the that. I do know the Bible, Timmy Stratton. Yeah, I do know that. And so did plenty of folks in the Bible. You came in late on the conversation. There's plenty of folks in the Bible that practice divination and black magic, and they got the whole world practicing black magic in the name of Christianity. So I don't care nothing about you getting upset with me about a few tarot cards. Yes, what was bad has been named good, and what was good is named bad. Lord Enki is the one who was our progenitor, who actually tried to preserve us and teach us and lead us and try to have our consciousness expanded and all the rest of that. Lord Yahweh, Enlil, is a dragon serpent, and he has purported himself to be God Almighty, but he has led mankind astray for thousands and thousands of years. He wanted us all dead, but if we're gonna be around anyway, we might as well keep serving him. But he gonna make damn sure we do not become enlightened and learn the truth. Because if we learn the truth, it's just like that moment in The Wizard of Oz when Toto finally pulled the curtain back and they found out that the wizard was actually just a man. If we ever wake up and learn the truth, the jig is up for Yahweh. So he has put every deception he could in the mix in the name of keeping us stuck and bound in religion. You said what happened to Adam and Eve was enlightened. Exactly. It would have been okay for them, except for the fact that Yahweh was so angry because they got enlightened that he threw them out of the garden and didn't allow them to eat of the tree of life, and made sure he put guards up with flaming swords to make sure they couldn't get to the tree of life, and did not provide for them, didn't care if they starved or whatever. They still lived almost 1,000 years. Said Adam lived to be 945 years, but he didn't get that cush life that he would have had anymore because Yahweh was angry that they knew the truth and he threw them out. He didn't care if they died or not. Ain't no big spider behind me on no wall. It's a tree. It's a tree in the moonlight, but okay. How can we speak to Enki? The same way you attempt to speak to Yahweh, just speak to him. Meditate. Talk to him. He'll well, I can again, Peter Wilson, you're looking at a redacted, abbreviated version of the genes of Isis in that story. You're not looking at the complete story. You're looking at what the church chose to give you in that story. It wasn't a literal tree that caused her. You really think there was a piece of fruit that she ate that caused her to magically know the truth and that was the sin? If If that's the truth, then that means that Yahweh is even more ridiculous of a monster. You put a piece of fruit there in the garden and told them that they could have everything else but this one. And because she took a bite of a piece of fruit, it made her worthy of death and all of her children, including us, for all time. That's a petty, childish, vindictive God, if that was the actual truth. The tree of life, according to the ancient texts, was actually a real tree that they brought from Nibiru that would extend their lifespans. And because Adam and Eve were half Anunnaki, it would have extended their lifespans as well had they been allowed to eat it. That's why they were put out of the garden, so they couldn't come back and eat from the tree of life. But it ain't really had nothing to do with the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. Again, that's the religious spin that was put on it. But the Anunnaki actually ate from the tree of life because it was medicine. It was fruit, but hey, what is it? The philosopher said, "Let food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food." They actually brought herbs and fruit and vegetation from Nibiru that they ate that extended their lifespan. It could be, Antoine, because Thoth was in Mexico and several of the rest of them, so it could be there. Right. Well, again, it says that God gave us free will, but remember in the scriptures where it says God, it should say Elohim, which means plural, because Lord Enki, God, Elohim Enki did give us free will. Elohim Yahweh wanted us to be slaves and not have free will. And that's where the great divide comes in. And Yahweh turned around and flipped the script and painted Enki as a devil for telling us the truth because he was enraged. Because if we learned the truth, like I said, his jig would be up. And so he has been on a smear campaign the rest of the time to turn around and let us know how evil and unworthy and dirty and sinful we are. And the only way that we can escape all of that is to continue to bow and scrape and serve to him. No, Connor, that whole idea of a mediator between God and man, again, that is some Christian nonsense. The scripture in John chapter 3, verse 16 does say that Elohim gave his son so that and that's a mistranslation. It says whoever believe on him. The actual translation should say whosoever believe like him should not perish, but receive eternal life. And that's no different than what they said in the Emerald Tablets. Thoth said that he wanted to be a light unto the world and teach people how to escape their mortality, expand their consciousness, and reach eternal life. Exactly, Alua. You get it now. They were advanced alien entities that came here and dared to play God. No, I'm not changing scripture. They've already changed it, Yashir. That's the problem. The scriptures tell us don't to add anything and don't take anything away, but they was adding and taking ever since they gave this book to the people. That's the problem. You think you're reading a pure version of scripture. These scriptures are abbreviated, truncated, plagiarized, and redacted versions of other ancient texts. This is the newest kid on the block. All of these books right here are way older. They just found these and remixed them and bound them up and gave them to you as the rule book and said this is all it is. It's not all it is. We've been lied to. That's why I'm speaking on the things I'm speaking now. Because you said, well, if you think about nothing as 100%, so why believe in any of it? So you won't keep throwing your hands up in ignorance and continuing to go with the status quo. That's why so many people go, and I get it. We had that attitude, well, you can't know for sure, so let's just not do anything. Well, that's part of what's wrong with the planet now, is that people don't want to bother to find out something that's different. They don't want to hear anything that's different. They don't want to think this thing through and figure it out. They'll just continue to accept what they've been given, and they continue to go along with the lie, and we continue to be edged closer and closer to the rails. That's why we're living in a dumpster fire with the zombie apocalypse happening around us right now, because people refuse to critically think and keep accepting the lie. I'm not having to call anyway. I'm not even going there. I'm not telling any lies. I'm humanity. The Romans lied to us. The same ones that unalived Yeshua at the request of the Jews. Yeshua came along and told the Jews that the God that they were worshiping was the wrong Elohim, that the God that they were worshiping was a liar and the devil. He said that. And they were so mad about it that they wanted him unalived. They didn't want to do it themselves, so they delivered him up to the Romans. And the Romans were ever so gracious enough to unalive him. And then 300 years after they unalived him, then they turned around and knitted him in the middle of this Yahweh vehicle to turn around and claim that he was trying to point people to worship the same Elohim that he came here and was unalive for telling people not to worship. That's the hypocrisy of all of this. People follow Christianity because they put Yeshua's name on it, supposedly saying Jesus Christ. And the people who love Jesus Christ buy into this mess. And the hugest hypocrisy of all of this is that the people who unalived Yeshua is the ones who made this up. That's what people don't understand. And they get so angry because I try to tell them that. But if you stop and think about it, when it says he was delivered up to the Romans, who the hell do you think the Romans were? The same people, the emperor, it's the same people that turned around later and made the Christian religion. Christianity was not a thing until Emperor Constantine of Rome made it a thing in 325 AD. Go do your homework, Jordan. I don't have to lie. I'm telling the truth. Go look up the First Council of Nicaea and see if it wasn't called by Emperor Constantine. Emperor Tiberius was the one who actually executed Yeshua, and he was dead and gone by the time they got around to writing Christianity. But Christianity as a religion is actually a vehicle of Constantine, and Constantine did not believe in Yeshua. Constantine was a sun worshiper, the sun up in the sky. That's why y'all got the cross is the main emblem of Christianity, because it was a seal of sun worship. The Bible isn't holy. That's what I'm trying to tell you, Squidward. If you actually understood where it came through. People are mean, Felicia, because they worship a dragon. Worshiping a monster makes monsters out of people. So if you're experiencing a lot of mean people around you, they probably declare that they are holy and good and Christian and all the rest of that. Christians do some of the most hateful things to anybody on this planet. Second only to the Muslims and the Jews. All of the folks that worship El and or Yahweh, Jehovah, are violent, bloodthirsty people because they worship violent, bloodthirsty Elohim. Everybody on this planet has lied or lusted, and that's the entire point. They sit there and tell you that kind of ridiculous stuff and say it with their whole chest, knowing it applies to them too. And again, there's no unity. If they actually had the truth, why is there 45,000 different sects of Christianity? They can't even decide amongst themselves. and then sit in judgment over everybody else. That should tell you right there it's not the truth, Jim. And we want to know, we want so badly for there to be this one truth, because Christianity has programmed us to believe we must find only one truth. But if Christianity were only the one truth, what about the folks that worship Yahweh under the name, Christianity worships Yahweh under the name Jehovah. If Jehovah is the truth, what about the Jews then? Because they worship Jehovah too. They just call him Yahweh. What about the Muslims then? Because they worship him, they just call him Allah. That's when the knot starts getting complicated, because none of them want to understand that all three of them swear and be damned they got the truth. And they can't even get along amongst themselves. And they spent the last 2,000 years killing each other. And how is any God that promotes killing people gonna say that he's the truth? And got other people trying to believe that he's the truth. Go raw. If you with Buddha, now you're with Enki. That's an Enkiite philosophy. It is not a religion. It is an Enkiite philosophy. And if you must follow something with ritual and ceremony and things like that, then yes, you would do yourself a favor to take a very good look at Buddhism. Because if you think about it, yeah, the jewel does represent the third eye, Evelyn. And I adorn and or protect my third eye as much as I can, especially when I'm in an open energy space such as this. CCP, again, we're not talking about the Buddha, because there were several Buddhas. Maitreya was the Christed Buddha. We're not talking about Babaji or any of the rest of them. The thing is, again, if you look at the fact that in the scripture there are two main Elohim, and there's two main divisions of thought. The Enlilite religions, the Abrahamic religions, comprise chiefly Christianity, Judaism, Islam, with Christianity being the newest kid on the block. But they're all Abrahamic religions in nature. They're all Enlilite philosophies that basically follow Yahweh, Allah, Jehovah. The Enkiite philosophies are like Jainism, Taoism, Buddhism, very peaceful, very self-empowering, not teaching bowing and scraping. And like I said, some of the philosophies have gotten a little bit more ritualistic over time. But if you just really, really needed something while you working out that whole worship gene shutting down thing, and you needed to direct your attention, devotion, reverence, ceremony, ritual, you needed to direct that somewhere, Buddhism is a beautiful place to direct it. I don't have the order wrong, Cinnamon Stick. Judaism came along first. Islam came along second. Christianity came along third. Okay, fine. I'll take that. Even still, it's still the same thing. The only difference is Christianity took off like a shot because the Roman Empire decided to go on a land grab around the world, and they took lands and people in the name of spreading religion. They unalived 80 million people around the planet to establish Christianity on the planet. If it was really the truth, issued by a loving God, they shouldn't have had to kill 80 million people to make it happen, but they did. People accepted Christianity because they didn't want to die. It wasn't that it was right and it was so progressive and they just had an epiphany. They literally came in and approached those people and said, this is what you're going to do or you're going to die. Oh, you're welcome, Crystal. Like I said, and the ones who can't hear it and don't want to hear it, they don't have to. They don't have to. I believe in Yeshua, Isa ben Nazariah, Yeshua Hamashiach, saying Jesus Christ. The Christos energy is wonderful and all of that, Jim Bridger, but Jesus means hail Zeus. That is a nod back to Yahweh. That now that I know that, I no longer refer to him as Jesus because that's not his name. And people don't understand that there was no J even in the Hebrew language. Yeshua, Hamashiach, they refer to him in some aspects, yes. Or Isa ben Nazariah, Isa ben Yosef. But I don't refer to him anymore as Jesus Christ because I cut ties with Yahweh. So, Orlando, I'm not going there with you because I didn't say nothing about a building doesn't have a builder. Yahweh done built a hot mess and leading humanity off the rails. So what do you own, honestly? You haven't been listening, dear, or you may have just came into the discussion. I never said that Yahweh really didn't build anything but a whole bunch of drama, confusion, murder, death, kill. The actual builder progenitor of the human race is Enki, according to documents that's way older than the Bible. It's just that within religion, they're not allowed to believe in any of that stuff because they've been hoodwinked, flim-flammed, and bamboozled into believing that these are actually original documents. Christians have no idea how this book been doctored with because they take that little scripture in there that say don't add nothing and don't take nothing away and actually think that the people that wrote this book went by those rules. And they've been adding stuff and taking stuff away from this book ever since they gave us this book. The Bible used to be when they first put it out, it was over 100 books involved in it. They cut it down to 66. They was taking stuff away from the get-go. But then they say them little pat phrases and got y'all, teach y'all in Sunday school to keep spouting that stuff so you believe it. But they've been tampering with the translations and then turning around and further tampering with it with all of the interpretationalizing they've been doing and all the rest of that stuff. So, yeah. Oh Lord, Jim Bridger. Now I know. Understand. So we talked about that though. Honestly, Jim, you're Mormon. I get that part. If you really, really understood the timeline of things, I don't even, I'm not trying to go in on you because like you say, you're trying to be I do anyway, boom shakalaka. You got banned off of here one time before. And that's the part. Y'all claim I don't have the truth and I don't know what I'm talking about. Why do you keep coming back? All you got to do is this. See? It's a real easy motion right there. That's all you got to do. But you want to come back here and talk trash. The point of the King James Version was not to pass on the truth, honey. The point of the King James Version was because King James was just on some stuff and wanted to do that. People don't even know King James' other famous work was an encyclopedia of demonology. King James was not a Christian. Anyway, I know exactly what I'm talking about, sweetheart. I know plenty of what I'm talking about. And if you stick around and be quiet, you might learn something too. But if you keep yapping, my moderators will get rid of you. They don't care. They will get you gone. Eker, that's gross. I didn't. You must have smelled it off your top lip or something because I ain't got time for it. I'm trying to see if there's anything I want to address here. I ain't even gonna bother to waste my time with that. Okay. What do you mean? What level of education do I have? I have basically through like the associate level in college, and that still don't mean nothing. What level of education do you have? I've been tested as gifted. I'm not a genius, but I ain't far off from it either. Not that I really think that IQ testing means anything for real. They used it to try to identify the star seeds on the sly so they could figure out how they could manipulate and control us. But no, I'm way above average intelligence, my dear. Not bragging or nothing, but way above. The best way to live is honestly and purely and step outside. An associate's degree typically is whatever you want, science, English, lit. But again, I'm not going there with you, okay? Because it doesn't matter what level because a child that can read with comprehension could get this stuff, doesn't even matter. My level of education, that's a very arrogant thing for somebody to say because you don't have a standard secular degree in something doesn't mean you can't read and understand something. I'm not answering that. That's silly. Hansworth, I'm sorry that you're going through stuff, baby, but you can't just keep spamming that in here. This is not a prayer line. What did you say on here? It's okay, dear. And I mean, if you're really, really going through something, I would recommend you pray. Like seriously, ask ask Yeshua and ask. I don't know what religious faith you are. That's why I feel a little uncomfortable. I'm not gonna start doing open outward prayer because I'm not here trying to proselytize for any particular religion when I'm literally trying to lead people away from religion or allow them to make a choice to turn off their worship gene like Lord Enki told us to do. So that's why I say I won't really go there, but I would encourage you to speak with Yeshua and Lord Enki and meditate. You absolutely right, Ankh Enki. Ankh Enki. Meditate. And if you really, really going through a lot like that, meditate. You put on some frequency music or something and just ask them to help. I think the same thing of Islam that I do of Christianity and Judaism, not much. Because Islam, they aren't exactly worshiping, directly acknowledging worshiping Yahweh, but they worship Allah, who is El, which still goes back to Yahweh worship via Marduk, basically. But yeah, it's the same thing. Any religion that promotes violence and war and unaliving yourself or other people and being misogynistic towards women, I don't think very much of it at all. We're not going there though. I will not use those kind of nasty epithets. Saying, Leon, if you come up with something like that again, you'll be removed. That's not nice. That's a very ugly thing to say. What about Judaism? It's no different. Yeah, the opiate of the masses. That is religion for real. No. How about people who have been equally misguided, just like Christians, just like Jews? We're not doing no racial nonsense here. That's very small minded. Hey, Goth Peter Pan, I didn't even realize you was in here, baby. Welcome. I'm not religious either, Sam and Ollie. I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious at all. So, yeah, I like you just fine. And I like religious people. I don't dislike somebody because of their beliefs. I'm here trying to teach people so that they can open their consciousness and modify their beliefs if they choose to. Can you get $5? I'm here teaching. You're supposed to be sending me $5, Blue Eyes. I spend an awful lot of time studying and disseminating this knowledge, and under the universal laws of uh, compensation, you're supposed to be giving me $5, boo. Of course, somebody can be spiritual and not religious. Your pineal gland is your pine needle gland is open. Yeah, your pine needle gland probably is open, but your pineal gland not so much. Saying the things that you're saying. Exactly. They do need to get past hatred. Yeah, we're gonna be leaving for too long because the freaks done came out at night. Well, thank you, Sam, and I hope that you get a chance to actually go through some of the material on the channel because, like I said, I do this as kind of an open forum, and we can talk about some of anything. But I've uploaded quite a bit of information where the thoughts are a little more organized. I go into some of the scripture as well as other things, and like I said, we've got 2 more chapters in the Emerald Tablets, in the compendium of the Emerald Tablets, and then we're going to be actually going into the 12th planet with Zechariah Sitchin. So I'm kind of excited for that. Yeah, so you here right on time. Oh, Slay Erica, I'm glad to know that I make you feel better, my love. That's good. And it's so interesting, Evelyn, that scripture does talk about not being conformed to the things of this world, and people don't even realize that religion is one of the things of this world that it conforms us in like the most painful ways of all. Most of the think about this, and again, people gonna get upset when I say it. Thank you, baby. I appreciate you, King and Nawa. Exactly, it is. And but I want people to stop and think about it. We got Christianity, Islam, Judaism. Now it's a bunch of sects of divisions in each of those religions, but between those 3 religions, they account for about 75% of the population of the earth follows one of them 3 religions right now, at least between the 3 of them, about 75%. And ever since those religions have taken place on the earth and somebody wanted to split hairs, but they've all were set up within about 500 or 600 year. Well, I think Judaism firmly established in the henotheistic tradition of Yahweh about 500 BC, if I'm not mistaken. And then, like I said, Christianity came along in 325 AD, and then Islam came along in 600, something like that, AD. Okay. So within 1,000 year span, they, like I said, they understand that humanity is about 300,000 years old. But in the last couple of thousand years, within 1,000 year span, all 3 of those religions took hold on the earth. And if you actually look at the history of earth since those religions came into being, we probably ain't had one solid day of peace, planetary peace, where there ain't no wars, no nothing, nowhere on the planet. We haven't had peace nowhere since those religions have come into being. That's the thing that people don't understand. But thinking about that, I want you to turn around and think about what the world would be like if everybody on the planet was Buddhist. It ain't just the Jews, honey, it's the Christians too. Christians is just as violent, disgusting as the Jews, is just as violent and disgusting as the Muslims. Deport them to where? You can if you offload 75%, we're talking about 6 billion people off of this planet. How you gonna deport them to where? Now you out of here, ignorant self. I just went ahead and hid him forever. He'll stay hidden until I get an opportunity, if I decide to ever let him go. I didn't time him out because that's not the first time he came on here with that. But I guarantee you, he called himself one of the big three. He either called himself a good Christian, a good Jew, or a good Muslim. I promise you. No, I don't practice voodoo or none of that. But yeah, think about the wars, the violence, the poverty. We got trafficking, slavery, misogyny, all of those things that we have on this planet. And then think about the world we will be living in if the whole planet, if 75% of the planet was Buddhist. Think about that. Like, seriously, think about it. You can't pay a Buddhist to pick up a gun and go pew pew nobody. Not for a king, not for an emperor, not for a nobody. A Buddhist will give you their last whatever. If they got a bowl of rice, guess what? You got a half a bowl of rice if you need it. Plumbing don't have nothing to do with what I'm talking about, Feral Cat. I didn't say they invented plumbing. I said the world we live in would be a much better place if the world was, like I said, if 75% of the world was Buddhist as opposed to 75% of the world following the Abrahamic traditions, we would have peace on this earth. And that ain't even, if you think about the tenets of Buddhism and the way Buddhists behave, that's not an idle fantasy. That's not a gross overstatement. That's a fact. If 75% of this planet was Buddhist or Jainist or Taoist, we would have peace. We would not have poverty and starvation and trafficking and all of those horrible things that we suffer on this planet. We flat out would not have it. People worship a God that doesn't care about that kind of stuff. So they behave that way because their God behaves that way. No, I didn't say prefer to live in China. China is a communist country under a human regime that a man that then basically declared himself a god too. I never said that. I said a Buddhist society. China is not a Buddhist country. That lets you know these people ignorant, but okay. All right, folks. All of the beautiful souls that were here and trying to do something, it's officially time for us to pack it in because I don't have time for the idiot parade that's coming through here now. Somebody talking about worshiping dollar McChickens and living in China and all the rest of that stuff. I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing all of it. Hey, P Vader, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? You came in the tail end. We're gonna have to get out of here soon though, because I don't mind staying up, but I can't deal with the idiocy. Some of these folks are just crazy, crazy. Thank you, Goth Peter Pan. And like I say, I will respond to some of these folks, but I'm honestly not even angry with them. They're literally like simple-minded children. Like honestly, some of them behave like children that need to be having the little padded cap on or whatever, and on the little yellow bus. Yeah, that part. Okay, Crystal Glenn. Yeah, I know it's okay. I got my feet on the ground. I got them. I need to go and put my feet out there on the. Yeah, I'm probably not gonna do that at 11 o'clock at night though, because we got an HOA notice last week that there was a coyote that was seen out there. So I probably will not be going outside. What did she say? You say that like I don't know that, Evie. I know exactly what I am. You say you love my head, Jim. Yeah. You identify it. Oh Lord, you one of them. You so darn confused. You don't even know what you are. You gotta identify as something. But okay. No, that ain't my spirit animal, and if she is, she gonna stay out there by herself. I'm not, I wish they was temple minded instead of simple minded. I really do. No, yeah, I'm a country girl, but I'm not that country. I'm not going out there messing around with no temple with no coyotes and snakes and all. I grew and it's crazy because I grew up in the woods, like in the country in a small town in South Florida. I'm not South Florida, but in Florida. I was in North Florida, but yeah, the older I got, the more sense I got, and I stopped roaming through the woods barefoot and all that crazy stuff. No, we don't do that. That's your new word, Brittany, temple minded. I don't live in Africa. I hope to be living in Ghana within the next couple of years or so, but I identify with like what's my identify? I identify as an African and Egyptian and all the rest of it. No, I actually was drawn to I've always been fascinated with Thoth and Egypt and places and things like that. But since Yeshua took me down this particular spiritual rabbit hole, um, I just came to understand that I'm probably going to end up in Africa. One of the first clairaudient things that I heard back in 2007 was that I was going to be learning another language and that I would wind up moving to Africa. I didn't have a clue what it meant at the time. I wasn't spiritually ready for it or none of the rest. And I still ain't. I'm still in the United States, but I do know eventually that's where I'm going to wind up. Yeah. All right, folks, it's 10:45 and I had so much fun this evening. I definitely appreciate it. Was that 7 o'clock time? Is that pretty much good for everybody? Well, most people I know, a couple of y'all couldn't get in early, and that's fine. But is 7 p.m. Eastern time kind of okay for most folks here? You do the same, Brittany, and thank you so much for coming in, and thank you for all of the mods doing such an awesome job. You say it's 8:45. You in the most western part of Texas? Okay, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. If like when I came in this evening, the time that I came in this evening, is that kind of okay for most of y'all? Okay, okay. I haven't been doing readings in the morning, Seed of David. And I'm not going. When I do go back in and start doing readings, it'll be for a donation, most likely. I just honestly don't. It wouldn't even be fair of me to other tarot readers on YouTube to continue giving that level of free readings continuously. I have to I've stopped and put a gap in that, and I've got some personal readings for the mods and stuff that I got to catch up on, and a couple of paid readings, and things. But when I go back in and start doing the live streams for readings, for the most part, I might do a collective reading for free. But then when I start answering questions like that and doing mini readings, it'll be for a contribution, a donation. All right, I'm gonna go so that the mosque. Hey, unique! Oh my goodness, girl, you really are doing your thing. Um, that's the thing. Multi-category. Right now, I had gotten laid off from my job, and I've been applying for jobs and all the rest of that, and hadn't gotten hired. But truthfully, I kind of sort of think it's because Spirit has let me know this is the gig. I've really just got to build my audience to a point where I can start opening myself up for like coaching services and consultations, private readings. I'm Reiki certified, so I make candles, but I do like Reiki infused candles. I meditate with the stones, clear them under the moonlight and stuff like that, and then make candles with them and make jewelry and things like that. So truthfully, I kind of sort of believe in time that this is the gig, like serving a community of people. Because ultimately, once I move out of the country, I want to start. There's several things and projects that I want to do that are going to be kind of dependent on gathering a soul tribe, and we're going to actually do some things to help folks together. So I don't know how that's going to all play out just yet, but I got to have faith in what Spirit showed me and, work with it. So, anywho, peace to you too, King Anawa. And Unique, thank you so much for joining. Thank you all. Thank you for all of the mods that were able to join in this evening. I will be back tomorrow evening. Like I said, for those that are looking to have a quick tarot, or like a real quick answer as far as the tarot readings, I am going to try to go on tomorrow earlier in the day. We're going to try to keep the evenings for these spiritual conversations and see how that goes. So I don't know exactly what time I'm gonna go on tomorrow, but definitely look for me. I'll try to put a notification up in the community tab at least an hour or two before I do go live. So if you're able to join me live for a tarot session tomorrow, by all means, be glad to have you. And other than that, I'll try to be here tomorrow. Yeah, girl, I was gonna try to stay on a little bit longer, but the freaks started coming out and they starting to get ugly and hateful, and it was a little too distracting. We had a really good discussion though, and I will make this public though, so when it finally does finish doing its thing in YouTube, it'll be available if anybody wants to catch it. But other than that, take care of yourselves and each other. I love you so very much, you guys. Thank you again. Peace and blessings to you. Oh yeah. Will do, Antoine. Good night. Love you. Namaste.